I wonder why our moms want us to sleep over at Kenny's so bad. Yeah, it's pretty weird. Well, all I can say is you better have Nintendo. Well, here's Kenny's house. In the gutter, on the cold and gray Chicago moon, another little baby child is born in the gutter, and his mama cries, 'cause if there's one thing that she don't need, there's another little hungry mouth to feed in the gutter, Shh, Cartman, what?
All right, everybody, welcome back to another week of Muskies on Tap. We finally got the whole crew in here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the last week where we talked about the Muskie Bender recap. Unfortunately, one crew member, Brian, the missing link, was not available for that recording, but we did have Clayton step in. Nick was on the call last week, and we actually have Clayton and Nick on again tonight.
Special guest.
Very good reason. No, we're not just having them back on to have them back on. They just won the PMTT this past weekend at Lake Minnetonka. So we already say it in there to give them a round of applause, but just give them again.
Do it again.
Why not?
Do it again. Do it again. Do it again.
So congrats to them. It was awesome. Their story is really freaking awesome. You guys are, I think, really gonna like it. We're gonna have their segment on here shortly, right after the intro. But before I go too much further and go into anything else, any other details on the PMTT and whatnot, let's introduce the Mott crew on here tonight. Max, how you doing tonight?
And I could not be better. This is probably the most fired up I've been to do a podcast in a while. None other reason than just coming off an awesome tournament at Lake Minnetonka. I mean, could not be happier for two better guys, Clayton and Nick, getting it done, especially after everything that they went through. Really excited for you guys to hear that story. Very glad that they hopped on shortly with us and kind of just gave us the down low. But I mean, Gus, we're going to be giving our recap here tonight too. Another top 10 in a PMTT event, actually snuck into the top 5. A lot to break down from the week at Lake Minnetonka, fishing more Minnesota waters, dipping our toe into I guess that segment of muskie fishing, which we really felt was a whole different animal to tackle. So just a lot of things to talk about tonight. Like I feel like we could go on for hours and hours about everything that kind of went down at Tonka and just had so much fun. So I'm really fired up to talk about muskies. Even more fired up that Brian is joining us here tonight. I get to see him this weekend. We got our big draft weekend for fantasy football. We'll probably be doing a little bit of fishing up north in Eagle River, but just to lay it out for you guys that are listening, we do this annual in-person draft with a league that's kind of formed by half of my buddies, half of Gus's buddies, that we've all kind of just become buddies.
And then our dad.
My dad's in the league. So it's just an absolute blast. We all get together. We do a bunch of big cookouts. We have our annual golf match from the young guys versus the old guys, and it's just always a really, really good time. So without further ado, let me introduce our other co-host here, Mr. Brian Eckel. How we doing tonight, Brian?
I'm doing great. Really excited tonight to get Clayton and Nick's story, as well as you two. Both had fabulous weekends out there in the lesser state of Minnesota. I was down in beautiful Madison, Wisconsin, drinking vodka Red Bulls and dancing it away on the dance floor at my buddy's wedding. So yeah, a little time away from the water for sure down there. But yeah, getting up actually tomorrow night, I'll be getting up into Eagle River. And then Gus and I are going to try and get my dad on his first muskie at some point on Thursday. We tried that earlier, or we tried that last fall, and it was just miserable conditions and didn't get it done. So I'm liking our chances this time around. And then of course, yeah, all the fellas getting up there this weekend. It should be an absolute blast as always. So yeah, we'll
Brian, let me real quick here. So you kind of mentioned that you were tearing it up on the dance floor this weekend in Madison.
Yes, sir.
We did get some Snapchats of you and some videos sent in.
Little sauce.
You want to care to explain the outfit of choice for yourself on the dance floor? I think if I remember correctly, it was no shirt, suspenders, or maybe a tuxedo vest.
Well, we
and a bow tie. So very Gus is showing the picture. Gus is showing the picture right now. Oh my
We had a
God.
group of us groomsmen, and it wasn't my idea, but the idea was take everything off, leave the vest on and the bow tie, and then go hit the dance floor, for the last hour. So yeah, we just looked like a bunch of male strippers coming out of the changing room wearing minimal clothing and dancing it up.
You guys might be too old, but do you ever see the SNL skit with Chris Farley when he's trying out for Chippendales?
I think so.
No.
Yeah, I've seen the skit on at least YouTube though.
Oh my God, that might have to be the intro for this week. But yeah, you literally looked like, well, you didn't look like Chris Farley, but it was like straight out of the freaking Chris Farley and I can't remember who else is the other guy in it, but you looked like you were straight out of a Chippendales freaking skit. I mean, it was insane. I woke up the next morning at like 4:30 to get ready for the tournament. I opened up my phone. I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, I think you texted you like, can you explain what was going on in that picture?
Sounds like
it
a
was
good time.
it was a great time.
It was a sight to be seen.
Yeah, everyone there loved it. But yeah, I don't think we'll be carrying over any crazy attire like that. Well, I don't know. Draft weekend dress ups, you never know what guys might show up in. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think for draft day, our theme for the outfits is with the cool weather gracing us in Eagle River this weekend on Sunday. I think our draft day attire is going to be Canadian casual.
You
So
wanna run that down? Like what's going through your head with Canadian casual? Talking like a mink coat?
yeah, I mean, I think
I'm
it's
thinking a lot of
subjective.
jean. A lot of jean.
Open to interpretation. Double denim is going to definitely be in play. We'll see what people do with it. We got a creative bunch coming up. I mean, last year we had I think we had football attire, maybe it was the year before, and I think one guy dressed in an entire Packers outfit.
Yeah, but it was ripped
Correct.
tight. He didn't have pads, so it was just
That's
showing
bad.
off all of his poor features. And it
Yeah.
just, I mean, we don't need to do that again.
That's a bad scene. Bad scene. Yeah, I'm hoping Canadian casual keep things a little more modest, a little baggier clothing, a little less showy in a room full of a bunch of
Then at
dudes.
least we can have some kids around if we're all in baggy clothing.
Right. Let's turn the tables here and dial up the interview with Clayton and Nick as they explain their first place finish in the Late Summer Showdown at Lake Minnetonka PMTT.
All right, here on the line with us, we have Clayton Spiess and Nick Amorose, your winners of the Late Summer Showdown at Lake Minnetonka. PMTT got the dub. They were on just last week, and here they are again. Man, congrats to you guys. Welcome back. We're just gonna quick talk about what all went down for you guys in the PMTT, the highs and also the lows and all that. But first off, how are you guys doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm great. Thanks for having us on again. Good to see you all.
Yeah, I'm doing
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
good too.
Nick's over there getting stuff ready for a walleye trip. He's already got walleyes on his mind.
Well, the Muskies didn't pan out tonight, so
Oh man, dang it. Well, they did for you guys last weekend, so I don't know if we want to quick touch on maybe because I know Clayton and Nick, you guys were talking about, or we were talking about last week, your thoughts on Tonka, and you just weren't quite sure of it. What were your initial thoughts on your 2 days pre-fishing and kind of how did that go?
Nick, or you want me to talk?
you can talk. I'm not very good at talking. We established this. And I actually have a really quick question.
What's that?
Max, are you like sipping on a Chardonnay right now?
All right, look, Nick, I like to set the mood for the podcast. So I got my tropical background here. My girlfriend bought these exquisite wine glasses that I'd be a fool not to drink out of. So I'm sipping on about a $10 bottle of wine. We're here to celebrate tonight, gentlemen. I don't know
The
what Gus is
Minneapolis
coming
and
in
the
here.
boy.
Gus is coming in here all flat, like y'all didn't just win a PMTT event last weekend. I mean, this is
flat. Did I not hype it up
insane.
enough?
Come on, like this is.
Tell me how you really
ridiculous.
feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think the people want to know first and foremost. I mean, not to take any credibility here, but like y'all came on the podcast right before he got down to Minnetonka. Was the mop bump real for y'all? I mean,
The mott bump.
does that
Jesus.
have anything to do with it? People want to know.
Or was that the reason that we had all our issues?
I'm gonna go with that side.
Lack of preparation.
Which, if that's the case, then thank you anyways, because that's why we probably won, was because of our issues. So,
well, you guys are going to
100%.
be on the Muskie Road Rules podcast and probably go a little bit more in depth about how everything went down. So I think I'll piggyback off of Gus's question here to kind of re-ask it. But you get down to Tonka, I would say that all the Eagle River boys were a little bit apprehensive about coming down to the big city and fishing some more metro waters for the trail. It didn't seem to me like those sentiments really changed after pre-fishing. Would you guys agree?
yeah, we only having 2 half days turned out to not be enough, in my opinion. Wow, what a body of water. I mean, spread out, tons of fishability, tons of structure. Like everyone said, the weeds were amazing, and you could basically fish the whole lake, which was insane for us to even think about trying to, cover it or at least look at it all in 2 half days. So we kind of scrambled, panicked a little bit, but tried to find like an area that we could hang out at for the weekend and, stay on fish. And we found a few areas, though we were not successful at moving any fish. So if I got to be honest, I'm sure you all can agree to this. I was a crabby a-hole going into the meeting on Thursday night before the tournament, because it sounds like everybody else didn't have any problem finding fish, but we were sitting there in the back cowering like, wow, like we really stink if, we can't get anything going. Although Nick did say in the podcast that, I think last week, I'm pretty sure he said that. He's like, my goal is to not catch anything pre-fishing. So he was very successful with that.
Very successful.
Yeah, I mean, like what a turnaround for you guys, obviously. But I think the craziest thing here is like, you guys are always on fish pre-fishing, it seems like. So it was a little bit, different, the dynamic. I felt like when we were kind of hanging out on Thursday night, that you guys really didn't have much going, because every time we've traveled with you guys, it feels like you guys are always on fish, always have a pretty good game plan. It really didn't seem like you guys, A, had much going, B, had much of an idea on what you really wanted to do. And then Friday morning hits, and I'll let you take it away, but like any game plan that you might have had going into Friday, I'd imagine went out the window pretty quickly.
Yeah.
100%.
It all kind of started snowballing into effect when we pulled into the launch, and I rolled down the window. I could hear something grinding, and hear my freaking brake caliper. Turns out it snapped off and was dragging on the hub of my trailer, my back axle on the driver's side, and wore a groove in my wheel and causing all kinds of heat and issues. And so that was like the first thing of 3 things that just happened back to back to back to make me I yelled at Trevor, who was Jeremy and Trevor launched with us, and Trevor was sitting out there in the lake, and I just yelled at him like, I just want to effing go home right now because of everything that went wrong. But like, we dumped in anyways, and we decided that we were going to deal with that caliper after the tournament. And I go to pull out my back light out of the compartment, and here, when I had used it the evening before, or actually, let's see, that'd be like Wednesday evening, I had it out and I put it away. Apparently the bulb had gotten so hot that it melted the plastic cover on the light, which melted through and into the light bulb, ruining the entire light system. So my back light didn't work. And I was just, getting, the whole crabbiness just was snowballing from not doing anything pre-fishing to now having some boat and trailer issues again, which, singing the same song basically from all season, all the issues that we've had and I've had with this new boat and the trailer. It's just seems like it's been nonstop, although the summer's been good, but anytime tournament comes around, the issues arise again.
I think that's because I'm probably on the boat.
Yeah, maybe Nick, I don't know.
I'm just saying, common denominator right there.
There might be a pattern to that. I wasn't going to go there, but I mean, if you're throwing it out there, I'm gonna start paying closer attention to that. So, so that's all minor stuff. Like, yeah, everyone's like, yeah, everyone has their issues, and go through it, and like, let's go. All right, we're gonna fish. On our way. We're happened to be a significant distance from ease out for the launch that we picked that day. I don't know why we decided to use that one. I don't know if it was like closer to where you guys were planning on fishing or whatever. I didn't really care, I guess, either way, but everyone kind of took off ahead of us, and we go to take off, and we get up on plane about 40 miles an hour, and the motor shuts down and goes into limp mode, and we just about went flying out of the boat.
I
And
drilled the dash.
Oof.
if it wasn't for me hanging onto the steering wheel, I probably would have flown right up into the windshield too. It was very abrupt, and my screen on my Yamaha screen for my newer motor, it was flashing at me like the trim is all the way up. Well, it wasn't up. And so we're messing around with it, and I'm getting even more mad, as you can imagine. The blood pressure was rising quite rapidly. And actually, I was like borderline in tears at this point, like just so frustrated. And it just seemed like everything is stacked up against us. Like, how do we even stand a chance? Like, why am I even here? Like, let's turn around, pack it up, and go home. And, and we kind of sat there for a minute talking about it. And I tried, we tried problem solving it a little bit, and I did some recalibrating and this and that and the other thing. And we couldn't get anywhere with it. So we're like talking about it, and I'm like, Nick's basically just like, whatever you think, I respect any of your decisions. If you want to fish, if you don't want to fish, I'm up for anything. And I'm like, I want to go home. And we turn around at one point because I think it started raining, and I also forgot my rain gear in the truck. For whatever reason, I felt rushed or whatever in the morning, and just left half my stuff in the truck. And we were probably like I don't know, maybe a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile from the launch, and we talked about maybe taking out and going to a different launch or getting my rain gear. I don't know what to do at this point. I'm just like completely frustrated, and just my mind is racing a million different directions. But we taught the deciding factor was, we pay a lot of money for these tournaments, and you just never know when, everything happens for a reason. Well, what could possibly be the reason of all these things going wrong? Obviously I can't read the future, so we don't know, but we're like, we're not getting our money back. I'm going to call Tim. At this point, we're kind of mapping it out, and I'm like, we're going to be like 45 minutes late for ease out, which another thing that kind of was on my conscience was like, I don't know why it bothers me, but like the embarrassment of like, oh, we're going to be idling through these narrows and channels and stuff when all the PMTT boats are going to be screaming by us going the other direction. I feel like a complete idiot, like we're either late or, or what's going on. Look at these, knob shines just, not knowing what they're doing. But, we just kind of kept talking about it, and we just kept heading towards ease out, and probably a half hour into it, we're like, all right, so here's the deal. Like, we're not going to be able to go fish our stuff anymore. We're going to have to, come up with a different game plan. Like, we didn't really check out much of anything close to where the ease out bay was. So it's all going to be kind of fresh water of if we really wanted to like utilize our time, try and utilize it wisely, and just kind of fish around the lake and pick and choose our best spots. And I guess we came to the conclusion that, like the way the lake's set up and all the structure that's basically all over on this lake, it really kind of made sense in the situation that we were in to put lines in the water and keep them in the water for the whole day and not take them out, like, which would mean trolling. And so we talked about that, and we both agreed that might be a good idea. Let's at least start and try it. And because of the little bit of action that we did have pre-fishing, most of it was on blades. And I had more recently kind of dabbled a little bit more in trolling blades in the last month or two. So I had a little bit of confidence, like, oh, let's try some blades. So that was our game plan heading towards ease out that morning. We kind of decided to just completely change from casting, running, and gunning to we were just going to troll for the day.
Clayton, can I cut you off real quick? Can you just kind of give the people a visual? I mean, was the boat traffic out there kind of what it's made out to be? Was it absolute chaos, or what was it all like?
So Friday, once we got going and started Friday, there was a bass tournament, I believe, that went flying by us one direction, and then the PMTT tournament, which went flying by us the other direction. Not quite all at the same time, but close enough to where it was, we got tossed around a little bit. But as far as traffic, Friday, I think it stayed cloudy enough and dingy enough that there wasn't a ton of traffic. I didn't have any issues. Yes, the boats are bigger. Yes, people are cutting you off. Saturday was a whole different ball game. We can talk about that when Saturday comes around. But as far as Friday was concerned, I didn't find it to be anything really worse than Eagle River, other than the size of the boats are bigger. But having a larger boat now and not my bass boat anymore, it doesn't really bother me anymore. I'm kind of used to it. We're used to it, because we deal with it all the time here.
Right. So you guys get to ease out. You make the decision to stick around. How long was it from when you guys put lines in the water and decided to troll to when you guys popped that first fish?
Well, I think a really important factor with that plays in though too is when we first started trolling, I want to say within 5 minutes we had a pike on. So it's like, oh, this could actually work even better. But I would say our first fish came 20 minutes in, Clay.
The pike was like 5 minutes in, like you said, which gave us some confidence. I think we dropped lines at like 7:50 to 8 o'clock, somewhere in between there. I'm not 100% sure. I know for sure we were at least 45 minutes late because the last time I called Tim and talked to him, I was like, well, now we're an extra 15 minutes late. We're going to be 45 minutes late. So it's probably close to 8. And we caught our first fish around the 9 o'clock hour. I was looking back on the times. I think it was like 8:50, 8:55, something like that. And that was like another point to where a person could get emotional and start crying because we went from complete like disarray, frustration, like questioning everything that we're doing out there to holy cow, we just qualified for the championship, which turned into be like that was our goal of sticking around for the day. Was like we really wanted to just fish our home water for the championship, and if we could just get one good muskie bite for that weekend just by trolling around, that would be worth it. And we did it in a huge way with our biggest fish.
The biggest was first.
Yeah, you talk about being emotional. I mean, what was going on in the boat after that 46.5 hits the net? I mean, not only are you probably feel a little validated sticking around, obviously, and also in your method, but it's like you said, I mean, you guys needed a fish to qualify for the championship on home waters. You had that whole element going on. And it's not like you pop a small one to start. I mean, you boat a 46.5 in the first 2 hours of the tournament, taking off an hour late. Like at that point, it had to be, I mean, it just had to be insane. the vibes in the boat just had to be ridiculous.
I may have done a little bit of celebrating the windmill.
I heard there was a double fist pump windmill situation going on, maybe.
I think I jumped off the front deck, maybe.
Yeah, I think Nick got the whole double windmill in, and then we were hugging and yelling and hooting and hollering like anybody
I told you not to tell anyone that.
Anybody that was anywhere close to us knew that we had a fish. I really didn't give a shit because that was mission accomplished. And then, basically, yes, we were stoked, but we didn't even really talk about future the rest of the day. We're just like, well, whatever happens here on out, who gives a shit? Like we just qualified. Like that was our goal. Like, let's keep going and see what happens, and, maybe we'll stumble upon another bite. Who knows? But we definitely weren't thinking about placing yet or being able to compete still. Basically we were just mission accomplished. This is awesome. No more pressure. Let's go have fun. Let's jam to music and let's do our best to cover as good of water as we can for the rest of the tournament. So then that leads up into, like, it was shortly after that then that we hooked up again. I think it was only like 30 minutes later. We were kind of on the opposite end of the same reef that we had just gotten onto when we caught our first one. And so Nick let me grab the rod for the first fish, and then I was like, all right, you got, it's your turn, you're up or whatever. So I mean, he jumps up so fast that I don't even know if the rod starts clicking. Somehow he just like feels it in the back of his, neck or something, his hair stand up whenever the fish bite. But he's
Musky
running at
sense.
that. Yeah, he's got that
Musky
sixth sense
sense.
of musky sense. But he got all over that rod on their second rip. The fish pulled the board down and started dogging, and we thought that was a even bigger fish at first. We fought, they were solid fights. Like every fish was solid fight, and he's worried about it, losing it and stuff and fighting it too long. And I'm just like, just keep pressure, I'm trying to be calm, because Nick's kind of freaking a little bit, which is super cool. Like, I love the emotion. And, I think between the two of us, we were able to work through it. But that fish came about halfway in, fighting its absolute heart out, and then it kind of gave up and got on the surface, and we kind of drug it up to the board, unhooked the board, and it looked like it was going to be an easy net job, when all of a sudden the fish just went ballistic and then launched in the air and spit the bait. And I just happened to have the net hanging out over the side of the boat, and it like basically jumped right into the net. And we got that one.
That's crazy.
Is that the moment where you just like knew the tides have turned, everything is now on your side, and you guys are, it's probably the other oh shit moment where you're like, oh shit, we could win this or place in this, something of that level.
I feel like we thought we could place in it. I was not thinking about winning it at all at that point.
It's because it's hard to say. You don't know how many other people are catching. You don't know if somebody's going out there catching 5, 6, or it's Minnetonka, Minnesota. There people could double up on 4-footers or 50s. I mean, it's happened.
That was something interesting about the lake. I never saw another person net a fish the whole weekend.
I don't know if
like
we
normally
did.
in tournaments, you always see somebody catch them.
Yeah, we maybe did one, but I don't even know if it was confirmed, and I'm not sure if we did, to be honest.
Also, I think another really cool part about those two fish were, they were both tagged fish. I've never caught a tagged fish before, so it's kind of cool to see it.
Nice.
That is cool. Yeah, you
Unable
said the one was
they were crusty.
Yeah. You said it was a little old and rusted up, crusty and such, but that's still pretty cool. I've never caught a tagged fish at all, but dang, yeah. Well, you get those two in the bag. Is the second one? You haven't caught the next big one, right? Nick caught that.
The second one was a 39 3/4.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like you said, at this point, like the mood has changed now to like we're on to something. It's go time. Like let's go pound some fish. You asked if we were thinking about winning the tournament, and I have to agree with Nick. Like, no, that still really wasn't on our minds. Like, we didn't have any clue that we could even get close to that. But what we were thinking about was Nick's never gotten one of those stone plaques that you guys have a vast array up there on your shelf behind you. So he's like just drools. He drools over those plaques, and he's like, "Oh, a top 10 would be dynamite. Like, let's go, let's get a top 10." So I guess so. Then we did start setting goals.
You guys just like the big trophies, though.
I
like the
guess
big
so.
Tall ones.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just give me one of them. Just give me one of them big checks. So yeah, I know you tried running out. We'll get to that. So fish number 2 is boated. Obviously, expectations, like you guys said, changes a little bit. Patterns working out. Third fish comes when? What was that like then at that point? Because as we all know, the difference between 2 and 3 fish in these tournaments for a day and a half is a pretty big jump in where you're going to shake out on these things.
I want to say it was probably a 4-hour window until we caught that fish.
Mm-hmm.
We caught a few pike here and there, and then we're on the backside of this one side, and then we're starting to make calls to see what we can do with the boat, like get that trim fixed or whatever.
Yeah.
And the guy said, you can do it, but you need to be here by 3:30. So we're discussing that, like, hey, we pull out early today so we can make it back to the boat launch, pull the boat, look at the trailer, and maybe make it to the marina to get the trim fixed so we actually have a motor for day 2. And I guess we discussed it, and it's like, well, we have 2 fish on the board. Let's see what else we can do instead of wasting time right now that we don't even know if the trailer is drivable at the moment in a way. So we continued to fish, and I think we got up towards, it wasn't the tip of the point, wasn't like on the side of it, Clay?
Yeah, we had just gotten to the base of another point. We actually ran to an area. We didn't run. We
Limped.
crawled and limped up to an area that we had wanted to cast and spend a lot of time in because we knew fish were going up there, and we felt really good about water clarity. We spent like you said, like 3-4 hours in this area, and it had shut down. And like we watched boats fish casting these spots that we wanted to cast, and here we were trolling around them and nobody's moving or doing anything. You know, we decided that had shut down. So we moved back out into the main lake where we got our first 2, and we are just kind of on the opposite side of the lake. And it was like 1:30, I believe, roughly, when we were working out on this one point. We actually decided to start heading towards the landing because we knew how far away it was and how long it was going to take us to get there. So we were kind of working our way that direction. And once again, the rod goes off, just screaming like the first fish. And I knew right away, like that was a big one. And I had Nick grab the rod again. And
Well, I think
again,
at first when that rod went off, though, because I know you got kind of shallow, and you're like, I got weeds.
oh yeah. So I literally like drove up on top of the weeds, and I was like, crap, I'm up on top of the shit again. Like, you're gonna have to clean the boards. And literally, I didn't even get that out of my mouth, and the rod goes off, and I was like, oh, it's probably weeds. And then I saw the rod tip bouncing, and it kept feeling drag but bouncing. I was like, oh nope, that's a fish. That's a good one. So that one dogged Nick pretty good again, like another awesome fighting fish. We knew that one was bigger. We didn't think it was as big as what it was, but we knew it was bigger than the second one. And that one ended up, I think, after we took the board off, it kind of took us around the back of the boat a couple times from one side to the other. We had some big yacht waves to deal with. I almost fell out. It doesn't really look like it in the video, but at some point you're probably going to see the video of it happening. I just about lost my balance and went out of the boat at one point trying to maneuver around behind Nick from one side to the other with the net. But once I put the net in the water, it went in clean, and yeah, we had 3. And then and then at that point, then we were like, we're definitely staying. We're going for it. Like let's see what we can do here. We might actually be able to compete to possibly win this tournament.
Right. Yeah. So you guys put off taking the boat engine in to get looked so that you could go. Because I know we met you back at the launch, and we're congratulating you guys on one hell of a day and all that, and saw you up there. I know you and the barbers were already out and taking a look at your trailer, and I think did you get that fixed right there, or at least enough to drive it?
Yeah,
or?
we zip tied and ratchet strapped the brakes up to the trailer frame to get me through until I got back home, which
Wow.
I got that fixed yesterday. So that's all good to go. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. So yeah, it made it all worth it to go to the meeting after day 1, because after day 1 you guys found out you were in first. You're leading
Yeah,
it.
the spot that everyone wants to be at after day 2. Not so much day 1.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So what were the nerves at? We'll kind of go into day 2. I don't know, for just that night and that morning. What were the nerves at for going into day 2? Game plan change?
For me, I was actually pretty calm because I didn't expect it. I'm like, I didn't really care because we got the main fish we wanted to qualify.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I didn't want to ask for more than that. So I guess I've been a lot more, the championship, I was a lot more riled up last year after day 1.
Yeah.
More anxious.
Yeah, I think I had enough whiskey that I was able, and Nick gave me the one bed that night, so I got a good night's sleep and slept well. Thankfully, I felt good. And we went out. Basically, we knew, well, we didn't know. We figured we would need one more fish, and we were like, let's stick to the game plan. We know the weather's going to be a little different, but gosh, if we got 3 on Friday, Saturday in 5 hours, we should be able to get one bite. So we're gonna ride or die with the bangers. We're gonna stick with it. We're gonna go for it. Like, let's get one more bite. And it kind of, like throughout the day, for most of the day, we were all positive. It didn't really care. I started getting a little frustrated, probably like around, 11 or so, because we hadn't had a bite. And I just couldn't believe it, like how much it had changed. And, we really started messing with baits and different baits, running them out deeper, going up shallower, running deep. We were trying all sorts of different stuff. We were marking some fish. They just weren't like moving. They weren't coming up anymore and eating what we had for them. So I was getting a little frustrated, but at the same time, we kept, anytime like I would complain a little bit, we could quickly be like, remember what we accomplished here, and to be happy with what we have, and and there should be no frustration, because we did freaking awesome the first day, and we really shouldn't worry about it, because everything is going to unfold the way it's supposed to. So
I say at that time you were kind of getting a little frustrated with it, and I think what actually brought you out of it, I don't know if it was something that was said, but we were actually listening to Muskies on Tap podcast.
No kidding.
Because we just finally we're like, screw it, let's just listen to this one that was just recorded. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, Clay goes, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. It's awesome we made it to this point.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Sorry
Oh,
we were
dear.
part of the day that you guys did not get one, though.
And we're not helpful.
Hopefully we kept you entertained. I mean, you guys are obviously probably, if it was the most recent one, you were part of it, but
Yeah.
yeah, glad we could keep you entertained during the slower Saturday. But regardless, here's what I really want to get into, because this is like what I'm most interested in. So the way these PMTT events lay out, for the people that have not fished them, or maybe have fished them and kind of understand this dynamic of them, is, Tim, the tournament director, will give some updates throughout the day, but you really have no clear understanding of where you sit in the grand scheme of things. And so obviously Clayton and Nick knew they were in first place after day one. Some fish pictures get released from the second day. It's a bright, high, sunny day on Lake Minnetonka. The boats are out in plenty. The wind really was not great. It was like a southeast wind, high skies. Just not your like traditional muskies are flying into the boat type weather. And they released some pictures, some nice fish were caught. But they don't really give you an idea of the full scope of things, like I said. So we get back to the rules meeting. The few people that were just in front of you guys, obviously we knew a few of the people that were on the leaderboard. We didn't know a few of the others. So there's really no indication of if you guys had won or not. So you're pretty much sitting in this hotel, banquet area, and Tim is just going down the list of the top 10. And we'll touch on this, or maybe we have already talked about this, depending on where this all gets cut in. But like Gus and I had no clue where we were at in the top 10 at this point, if we even made it. Clayton and Nick had no clue if they had won. And so they're just kind of going down the list. 4th place, 3rd place. What were the emotions when he started talking about 2nd place, when he starts reading off the fish by fish list, and you knew the second he said that first fish, and it was not one of the fish you guys caught, it was like the whole section of where we were all sitting just was like, let's go.
Yeah.
First thing I did was high five Clay.
Just naturally.
Yeah, boy.
I was pretty jacked. Like that whole, when he's going through it all, I was really actually very anxious at that point.
I'd imagine.
I didn't
I
even
was
want to
too.
touch my phone because I was that anxious.
Dude,
My heart was racing. Just I was going nuts, like hyperventilating almost a little bit, and just sitting there like sweaty palms. Like, you got to be kidding me! Like this, like we're up and we're up and we're up and it's going up, and I'm like, this is unbelievable. I can't even believe it. Like, we could be. It looks like we might have it.
because the team in second after day one also caught 3 fish. So if they just catch one more fish, or another team that had double catches 2, you guys are probably bumped out of that spot. And we had no clue if that had happened. There was no one had said anything to you guys at this point.
Right.
Which honestly, I think that's one of the coolest things. It sucks because you get anxious, but it's kind of fun. And when you look back at it, going through all that, seeing the excitement build in yourself.
Yeah,
That's very true.
awesome.
That's when I was the most nervous. I'm sure you could say the max of the whole weekend was sitting in that room for, you, me, and then Clayton and Nick. Like,
Dude, I got
where
straight up
we were.
chills when
Yeah.
they started to announce that second team like fish list. My whole body got chills. I was like, holy shit, Clay and Nick just won. Like, this is crazy. Like,
I still can't believe it.
It's
okay. Only
Yeah.
other question I'm gonna ask about this. Was there any nerve-wracking moment when Tim posted the pictures and you guys saw Gus's fish? Like, oh shit. Or were you guys like, nah, they ain't gonna catch another one?
Oh yeah, no, I actually
didn't even know because I didn't even see that update.
I saw it and I was like, them guys tripled. They had to have. Like, they're only showing the biggest fish. Like, if they got one more, they've got multiple. Like, the bite changed, they found it, and it's gonna come down to like 5 points or something. Like, who knows? Like, it's gonna be such a tight race. I figured for sure you guys had 3.
Because we really had nothing going on. And then Gus out of nowhere pops this 45 right before the mid-morning update. And we're, obviously Gus and I were going crazy. But then when Tim posts the update, that fish picture was included. And I literally remember I turned to Gus and I go, I wonder if Clayton and Nick are like those fuckers. Like, if they got another one, like, I wonder if we're going to get a text from Clayton or Nick just being like, just feeling out the situation, like, hey, like, how's the day going, boys? Like, got any others outside of that one? Because now, granted, we, obviously with that double, we still had a long ways to go to catch you guys. But as you saw, and Gus mentioned, like on Minnesota waters, like catching a 46 is not, that's not like outrageous like it would be on northern Wisconsin body of water or something. Like, you find one more bite, it could be a giant fish. And obviously,
you guys are 146 and a half away.
Which is,
Yeah.
a
Less than that.
tall order to ask, but at the same time, like, that update came at, maybe 10:30, 11. Like, it's not like there was no time left in the event after that update went out. So I was just kind of curious. I never asked you guys about that when we went for celebratory beers after, but I was just kind of curious to know if there was any internal dialogue on the boat after you guys saw that update.
No, it was just Clay. All of a sudden, like, I'm just driving at the time, and Clay goes, "Hug, Gus got a big one." I'm like, "How big?" I'm like, "Damn, that's a nice fish." I thought it was bigger than 45 though.
I think we all did.
That one didn't miss a meal.
Good hold. Good hold.
Ooh. Yep, got the holds down.
We were really happy for you guys. At the same time, we were thinking, wow, we're getting bumped. Like, the more the time goes on, the more we're probably getting bumped down. And it is what it is. But we also thought, man, I wonder if we should try casting a spot. Like, should we just go and cast the stuff where we caught fish? Should we, switch and go deep with crankbaits? Like, we really started second guessing how we were going to finish the day off and what direction we were going to head. Should we head back to the landing, towards the landing, to get ready to, take out when the tournament ended, or do we stay out in the area that we thought was going to be good? Like, we definitely, our minds were racing after that first, that update. You guys had one. We knew that. I mean, Greg texted me right away as soon as he got his triple. So we were like, oh my gosh, these guys are right on our heels. Like, they're coming for it. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah, it was like amazing defense. Obviously, you guys didn't actively play any defense, but it was outstanding defense. I mean, you had people hooking, losing fish, but at the same time, like, It is literally, it was all you guys. I mean, that was so sweet. 3 fish first day after everything you guys went through. I mean, that's got to be one of the cooler tournament stories of just straight up roller coaster of emotions, like going from what you guys were going through, literally had turned around to go back to the launch to drive 5 hours back to Eagle River. Instead, stuck it out, popped 3 fish on day one, and then end up taking the whole thing and winning it. It's just so, yeah, it was so cool. Pretty sweet.
Yeah. Yep. Hopefully never forget that.
I won't let you.
That's
Yeah.
good.
I'll just tell the
Perfect.
story about how I guided Clayton to 3 fish that day.
Oh, is that how it went?
Oh,
That was the other way
Here
around.
we go. Yeah. Wow. Unreal. Whatever. Hey, fine. I'll take it however I can get it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys are in the championship, Eagle River. I'm sure we'll probably have some pretty fun ideas flowing for that championship weekend. We're getting a lot of really awesome people coming to our home waters, hometown, all that good stuff, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're really glad you guys not only qualified, but really, really qualified, sealed the deal, left it no doubt, and yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh
I
yeah.
kind of
looking
wish
forward
they
to
had put. I kind of wish they had put Lajewski and Mullen in front of us so we could have our same number, because I feel like this number has been good. We had it for the championship last year. You know, we've had it.
Oh, number 12.
Yeah. It's
So you
got
guys
some
are
mojo.
13 or 11 or
We're 11.
you're 11? I like 11. That's
My favorite number.
Sticks.
Yeah, I
my
like
favorite
that number.
numbers.
Stixie. My high school hockey jersey is still hanging in the rafters somewhere. Don't forget.
All right. Yep. All right.
Forget.
Yeah, I got to wear that for 1 year.
Yeah.
But
Shout out.
no,
Yeah.
but that story overall is really awesome. I'm happy we could have you guys on here to tell it. I mean, God, just the emotions. First place, guys. Congrats. I know you're going to be on Greg's podcast. Yeah, round of applause, everybody. Everybody listening, just start
Clap
clapping.
it up.
Round
Clap
of
it up.
applause
Clap it up.
for our
Good
If you're
guys.
job.
driving, hands off the wheel, clap it up.
We got Clayton here with This'll Do Outdoor Adventures. We got Nick, aka Hammer, with Hammer Customs Lures. I mean, what a
That's
duo.
good. What a
Cheers.
duo. Good stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we gotta
Booyah.
do shots of blackberry again too here at some point. We get the crew together.
Yeah,
Sweet.
no bird
I
dog.
can't.
No, I got blackberry. I got bottles of it
Good.
here. Anytime.
Well, we'll be
Awesome.
around this weekend. So you guys better poke your heads in and say hey, and maybe we'll do a little celebratory shot when that happens.
I'll be gone all
that's what I'm
weekend.
talking about.
All right.
Well,
Well, see you
screw
later.
you, Nick.
See you this weekend, Clay.
Yeah. Bye, Nick.
All right, boys.
All right.
Well, we appreciate you hopping on. Of
Yeah,
All
thank
right,
you for
thanks
having us.
us on again.
course.
Yeah,
Thanks,
no
boys.
problem.
Congrats.
Congrats to you guys too. Another man, like I don't know if
Yeah.
I've ever met another. There aren't many teams
Consistent.
that are as consistent as you guys are. I'd give you guys props for consistently putting fish in the boat. If you don't, you have opportunities every single time. So keep up the good work. You'll get your number one here soon. I feel it's coming fast.
Well, appreciate that.
So, yeah.
Thank you very much,
appreciate it.
Clayton.
Kings are catching 1 fish a day.
The Kings.
Still
Or
looking
we
for
do-
that double, but yeah.
Hey, you can't get two unless you catch one, I think.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure that's been
I
officially
don't know. It's still out
recorded now.
there.
Oh, it's still out there.
Oh, that's too good.
Right
Oh,
on.
you guys enjoy being on the pod with Greg. Everybody out there in the muskie world is gonna get a whole lot of Nick and Clay, so that's perfect.
They're gonna be sick of us.
Deserve a big
I'm already
spot.
sick of myself.
Clayton and Nick, what are you guys doing next week? Want to come on the pod? Chop it up. All right. Well, you guys have a good one. We'll talk to you later.
All right,
Congrats
have a
again.
good night, guys.
Yeah,
Bye.
you too.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. Well, we cannot thank Clayton Spiess, Nick Amorose, enough for coming back on the podcast again. And short notice, I know they're going to be on Greg's as well, Muskie Road Rules, talking over their first place finish. But wow, we couldn't just not have them on. We needed to get a little low down there and just get their story out because it was really something special. And just, if you find some time in your day and you're listening to this, just, if you want to shoot over a message to those guys, I know I know they definitely appreciate it. But yeah, congrats to them again. We're really happy to have them on. But yeah, Minnetonka treated overall the Wisconsinites pretty darn well. I think there was full of some others in that top 10 leaderboard. Another give congratulations to Greg Thomas and his partner Rick Hoover for a third place finish. They tripled as well. So congrats to them. But man, Tonka was a good amount of fun. I didn't really know what to expect. I've already talked to Max about this. It was probably just like I think Clayton and Nick said too, is like the least prepared to go to one. Like Cave, like you are fully getting your boat ready and getting everything sorted. You have months to prepare. You're ready to roll. It's like the first place you're going to. And then Madison, it's still like, up until Madison, it was only like a week and a half of fishing, a week of muskie fishing up here. Otherwise, I was doing a bunch of smallmouth fishing. So I was just like pumped to go. This is just right in the dead nut center of muskie fishing, in August. And it was a little bit, we kind of had to squeeze it in, still had Monday night and Tuesday night league, and then didn't go to Tonka until Wednesday. So yeah, we all kind of had those two short half days to kind of get it done on a 15,000 acre lake that's got 20 some bays or something like that. 20, I don't know, basically a ton of different lakes within the lake to try and learn in 2 half days for the tournament. So we'll dive right into that, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it was I was glad you guys made it down. I think talking with you guys prior to Tonka, it didn't seem like the excitement level was at its normal, I guess just a normal level for a PMTT event, normally where the group chats are firing, everyone's excited. Gus and I do a lot of planning for these events. We put a lot of pride into them. And I would really say Tonka was one of those that, like, with Gus, starting to fill out his guide schedule, with my work getting a little busier, it was like just kind of snuck up on us in a way. We were still really excited for it, but I think, after the Madison deal, I'm not sure. I don't want to speak for you, Gus, but maybe confidence was a little bit lower. Going back to another very highly pressured body of water, it was just like another metro lake, not really sure what to expect. Luckily I'd gotten out there a few times this year just to get a feel for the lake. And I mean, really, I don't think I got a true representation of what it could do just because every time I fished it, it was, flat, calm, sunny conditions. A few decent little weather days, but nothing like really nice. Kind of fishing it during a lot of peak boat traffic hours, stuff like that. So I don't know if I relayed maybe the best information back to you as well. But regardless, I think we went into it thinking that we could still get something done. Obviously, you don't enter these to not catch fish. So we went into it with I'd say still like moderate expectations. We wanted to do well, but yeah, I would say the planning just on the front end was much different than, like, compared to Vermilion last year, where we were, buying lake maps back in February and marking off spots that we might might hit that August. Like, it was a different
Right.
level of attention, I think, if you would agree.
Yeah, when we first walked into the cabin, when all of us were there at the same time, the Barbers and Clayton and Nick, I think Jeremy Barber just kind of says out loud, he just goes, "Did anybody buy a lake map?" And we're all just like, "Nope." Nope, not for this one. We're just as I said in the interview, which people thought was funny, I guess it's just a word I use randomly, is we were just freeballing it. We all were. We all just went in there just doing our own thing and finding our own stuff and just seeing what would work for that week, like what looked good in our eyes. So not too much planning ahead of time and a lot of thinking on hand and thinking while we're fishing to get it done. And yeah, the expectations were definitely different than last year's by quarter three, going to Vermilion where we're sitting at first for Top Gun and we're like, oh my God, we gotta, give ourselves the chance. Like we got, putting way too much pressure on us. We're here, we didn't get a fish in Madison. We're like, all right, the expectations are we're at the championship, but we probably maybe don't have, shot for Top Gun, which we'll get into here later. And we're just gonna take the pressure off like this. Let's just go enjoy ourselves and try and get fish. And I'd say we fished pretty damn hard in those 2 half days. We did maybe some of the least amount of, driving around that we normally would do, where we're just kind of just fishing to catch fish.
We
And I
fished.
think
Yeah.
and that's what made it, a lot more enjoyable. Because honestly, until Saturday, like 10, 11 a.m., the boat traffic was not bad. We were blessed with great fishing weather and not great boating weather. Thank God. That's all I
Right.
can say. But I did
Yeah.
get to see the brute force of Tonka. For a little while I was like, "Oh my God, like I could fish here for a while. This is awesome." And then I was just like, "No, take me back to the chain. I'm good."
Yeah. I mean, it all the whole weekend started off kind of funny. Like Jeremy calls me at like 10:30, 11 a.m. and I was still at work on Wednesday and he's like, hey, we're here. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. You guys made it down early. Like, let me check where Gus is at. So I pull up the little Find My Friends app, whatever, just to see where Gus is at. And we hadn't talked in the morning really all that much. And I see his little locator deal is still at Eagle River. I'm like, hey, Gus, you gonna leave anytime soon? What's going on here? We got a lot of
Well,
lake to go figure out.
yeah, to put a little context in there, and I'm not trying to be this little crybaby wimp here, but a guy's got to have his sleep. So
Yep.
leading up to this,
Kept hitting snooze.
we had the Bender weekend, which I believe I guided multiple days in a row up until, and then we fished hard Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, pretty much going to bed at the wee hours and waking up by 4:30 a.m.
Mhm.
And then I guided Monday, Tuesday, and had league Monday, Tuesday night, and we recorded our podcast for the Muskie Bender weekend Tuesday until midnight or later or something. And I still haven't packed at all, other than one grocery run. So I wake up just to finally get like 7 hours of sleep, 7.5 or something like that. And then I'm like, okay, I gotta pack up everything. And then I was going through the boat and I'm like looking there and I'm like, oh snap, I don't have like any of like the good Minnesota baits. All these baits are too small, and I had to go through that because of yeah. So I had a late start. Short story long, or long story short, however
There
you
you
want to
go.
put it.
There you go.
But but yeah, I got on the road a little bit late on Wednesday to make it truly a half day. Not even fishing. Where we fished 4 to 8:30.
Did you guys start fishing like where Max had fished when he had been out there a couple times, or did you just start with like a smaller lake section of it all?
Honestly, we tripped into a bunch of stuff I'd never been into solely because it was the closest launch to where Gus was staying. So,
Which is not where Max fished
yeah,
much at
most of
all.
the stuff I had fished prior to Gus getting down was east and central on the lake, which is the closest launch to where I live. So it's just always kind of made sense to go over there. Obviously, there's a bunch of fish everywhere across the lake, but I think our plan was, all right, hey, I have fished some really good areas. I know where some fish are, or at least were, back in like June and July. So, we'll kind of save those for day two, pre-fishing, check on them. We really don't even need to fish them if they still look good or they're similar to where maybe we had seen or caught fish the day prior. So like our strategy Wednesday night was really just to try to find some new stuff in case the stuff that I had seen really didn't pan out. And honestly, like we started fishing this other section, the west side of the lake, and I'm like looking around, as we're kind of going through our first spot, and I'm like, man, I kind of like the way this lays out better than the stuff that I had previously fished just for a tournament, scenario because a lot of the stuff was pretty close together, wasn't super long runs. I mean, Brian, the way Tonka lays out, like it's pretty much the Eagle River chain times 8, 9, 10, maybe, where like there's all these different lakes within the lake, and then there's still channels, between different sections. So it's not like Vermilion where you're kind of like big lake, but you can kind of run super fast across it. And you're kind of getting broken up by these different channels. So, if you decide to fish the west side of the lake for the tournament, like it'd be pretty hard pressed in our boat to, well, I guess there's a speed limit too on Tonka, but it'd be pretty hard pressed to go all the way to the east side or something like that during a single day fishing. So, we kind of just wanted to see how the other side of the lake laid out. And honestly, I kind of fell in love with it. I was like, man, there's these, multiple spot areas that are really close together. A lot of this looks good. The weeds are actually kind of laying out a little bit easier to fish, a little bit more of our style. Like the one thing I think I wanted to make sure I said this before I forget, up north, a lot of the stuff that we fish, the weed lines come out to maybe, most of the lakes, I would say, Gus, maybe what, 8 to 10 feet would be like a
good average.
Yeah, relative average. So, if you're fishing any given spot, you really could cast up to that inside edge on that like 3 to 4 foot area. And then you could also have somebody else casting out to that like 10 to 14 foot area on the other side, and kind of figure out where the fish are. But with Tonka, that weed edge extends from 3 out to, 15, 16, 17, all the way up to 22 feet. We saw it out, maybe even deeper in some areas. So it's really impossible to kind of fish both sides and figure out where these fish are. Like, I think that was the biggest thing for us was like, the colder weather, temperatures have dropped, water temp was around that 72, 73. Are these fish going to be pushed up super shallow? Or are they going to be out hanging off the deep weed edge? Are they going to be out in open water? Like, we really didn't know. And you can't really just go through a spot and be like, okay, well, we fished the 8-foot weed edge, they're not here, so they got to be out on the outside edge. It was like, well, there's a 13-foot edge, and then there's kind of different weeds at 20 feet. And so like each spot almost had 3 spots within it, of where these fish could really be stacked up. And that was like very difficult for us. So I think we really tried to find spots that we could just really wrap our heads around. Like, okay, I know if I'm fishing here, I can work it down this weed edge and cover kind of the cherry of the spot. And it was like just totally different from what we're typically fishing in the North Woods, if that makes sense, really.
No, that definitely makes sense. Like you couldn't just go pick a line on a spot, each cast on either side of the boat, and you're basically both damn near still casting in the same depth of water, unless you're on something like super steep. But we found, well, we were kind of fishing spots that were, I don't know, I would say long extended flats that were close to like pinch points and close to areas where we kind of thought there would be some current more so going through, something that could congregate the bait. Because that was another thing that Max said before going into this. He's like, all right, when I've been out here so far, this, late spring and summer time frame, every time we saw bait is when we saw muskies. Like it was very evident. I know that sounds very cliche and simple, but it was actually that simple. We didn't find muskies where we didn't find bait at all, or at least, packs of them. Bait seemed to be very important.
Big balls of bait, like huge, like where it lights up your graph type bait.
Small panfish probably, and you get a couple other marks in there, bass or whatever, and walleye, I'm sure. All the things that muskies, kind of need to hold to a spot. Like, it was pretty obvious, like, all right, Tonka is weeds. Yes, there's a couple pea gravels and rocks here and there, but like Tonka, it's either they're in the weeds or I guess there's probably open water, but there's no Cisco's in that lake unless I'm speaking out of my ass or something. I don't think there's Cisco's. And maybe,
so.
hopefully somebody correct me if I'm completely wrong in that. And then it's got sand too, like, that classic sand Minnesota bite, which honestly, like you'd think, oh, shallow water, that's not that hard to find, but this is, this is a giant lake with giant flats and a lot of shallow water. So it's actually kind of intimidating to go look for really shallow water because a lot of the spots that we started to like and move fish on, we would move shallow and we wouldn't find an inside edge. It was just choked out weeds, like unfishable weeds. And we're like,
Mhm.
well, where the hell is this shallow water bite? I mean, if we had a little bit more time, it would have been cool to find that because I actually do think a lot of those nice fish caught in the tournament were on a shallow water bite. It kind of sounded like a lot of people caught some nice fish in less than 6 feet of water. Um, and I don't think we did other than the one that we'll get into pre-fishing. I think everything else was at least 8, 10, 10 to 15 feet of where we had our action and a little bit out to like 18, 20. I don't think we caught one out there though. Maybe one pre-fishing, actually, the smallest one pre-fishing was out in that 18-foot edge or so. So it seemed like you really had to check it all. But yeah, that night one, Wednesday night, we get out there and was it the first spot, Max, that we hooked
Mhm.
up?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's right. So we're doing the big drift of Camp Manti campground spot that was nicknamed, or do we go somewhere?
Yeah, Camp Manti was our first spot. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll touch on why it got named that during the tournament hours. But Max, so we kind of rolled to the spot, and then it's just one of those things in pre-fishing. We actually didn't map it out at all. I just turned on quick draw and I just got on the spot where I guess thought maybe we should start. And I think the first set of action, I was burning a Huntsy Tails banger and I was looking off in La La Land or the Graph or up in Max or something, and I just heard a big splash, like not just a wimpy one. It was like directly behind my bait, and I'm like, do you see that, Max? Like, was that a pike or a muskie? This was like right away. I was not expecting this at all. I'm like, did that muskie just like miss my lure? So I just kind of put a waypoint down to whatever, and we just keep rolling the spot. And then I think you had one up, or I had one up, maybe a lazy one, and then you caught the small one on a Bam Bam. And that was
Mhm.
our first spot ever at Tonka. So that was pretty good confidence booster there that we got bit, we found fish, and hey, this might not be too bad. Maybe we're in a window, but at least we're finding fish.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. And so once he contacted some fish in that area, we're just like, oh, okay, we'll try to find some areas that look fairly similar, good weeds and good depth that we like adjacent to some current areas. So that was like not that hard to find on Tonka because there's a million freaking spots that kind of lay out like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the one thing that makes it tough is the whole lake seems fishable. I mean, you could really pick any shoreline out there and just go start hammering away.
Yep.
So obviously in a tournament you want to kind of consolidate your areas and find your cherries and all that stuff. So that seemed like a tall task. But yeah, I mean it was really nice. Like it's up to that point, like I said, I fished some unfavorable conditions, but to actually bag one right away, I'm like, okay, maybe we'll stick around here. And I think we rolled up to our second spot and we're fishing it through. And I don't know, Gus, you and talk about that, but it was like we were
Yeah, I
looking at
will.
it and Gus turns to me and he goes, "Man, this spot looks like absolute shit."
Oh yeah, I say
And
that, and that cast that you were already out on, that you hooked up like at the boat, pretty close to the boat on a Bam Bam again. So then if you wanna, yeah, I'd said that exact words came out of my mouth. I'm like, this looks
he's
like
like,
shit. This is
I don't know about
garbage.
this spot. This spot looks like shit. And this kind of goes to show, like, man, we really didn't know what the fuck we were doing. I mean,
We didn't know what
we
to
didn't know
exactly look for at
we didn't
Tonka.
know
Like we
what to
knew
look
there's
for.
there's weeds everywhere. We just didn't know like what weeds to look for. And then after that one hit, we lost that one. Max, you can touch on what happened there. But after that one, that completely changed our mindset on like what we wanted to look for. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it was one really, really close to a current area with some weeds, which again, like Gus said, they're everywhere. So yeah, I haven't thrown the Bam Bam as much as I was hoping to throw it this year. There really hasn't been. Every time I've been up north so far, it's been a lot of bucktail topwater stuff, for bitey fish. So I really haven't thrown the Bam Bams as, like I said, as much as I'd wanted. I knew Tonka, it was going to be in play. I got a little tip from my buddy Cam that he had hooked up on a nice fish at Tonka with a Bam Bam. And so I was like, man, I just gotta stick to it. And obviously, you catch that smaller fish in the first spot. Like, I was throwing the regular size Bam Bam with the big heavy head, and like a 28 to 30 inch fish eats it. So it's like, okay, somewhat scoreable fish, maybe not, but like this bait isn't like a hog hunter type deal. Working it really different than I ever would in Wisconsin. Like, that was the one thing that I kind of took away from these Minnesota fish with rubber. It's like, you know, big up rips, and then just kind of letting that bait drop super slow. And when it kind of hits its like maximum, depth of that like 10, 12 feet, big up rip, let it drop. And those fish were just kind of like coming in and just, I don't know if they were coming vertical or what, but they were eating it really weird on that big drop. It was just super different, instead of that Wisconsin bite where you're ripping, 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 and you kind of feel the fish hit as you're kind of going into your next rip, where you kind of double set it. This was almost like a bass fishing type technique where you kind of feel it on the drop and then you set back into them. But yeah, that second fish was just stupid on my part. We're not used to seeing these beautifully spotted Leech Lake muskies. That fish was like hooked actually probably pretty well. And as the fish is coming up, I'm like, oh, it's just a pike, and totally like go limp. And Gus goes limp with the net, and we're like, whatever, we'll shake it off. And then the fish like skies out of the water. It's just like 34-inch Leech Lake strain spotted muskie. I'm like,
yeah, it shakes the hook, and we're like, oh shoot, that was a muskie, not a pike.
so like, good to know for the tournament that if you think you might have a pike, it actually might be a muskie. And Gus was kind of looking at me like, dude, how'd you not know that was a muskie? But that also happened to you the next day free fishing, where you had one coming into the 8 and fishing same spot day 2 of pre-fishing. We got out much earlier, and just kind of like Gus said, we did a lot more fishing during this pre-fishing, not as much mapping. So we were just hitting spot. And Gus had one come flying in on the 8, and I could tell like he just wasn't that excited. Goes into his first turn, the fish comes up and crushes it. And I think you even said like, oh, it's a pike. And then you're like, no, it's a muskie. So,
yeah, I had no idea, because like I totally thought it was a pike coming flying in, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do this first turn and maybe not, pull out and put a waypoint down for hopefully coming back in the tournament. And the thing acted completely like a muskie. I hung it, and it just flew up after it and just crushed it. I'm like, oh shit, first turn, like crystal clear water. I guess I'll take this or whatever. It was my first ever Minnesota muskie, first ever leecher, was a
gorgeous
34-incher. So
gorgeous fish.
yeah, that had some crazy cool spots. That was on one of the latest posts. So I was pretty stoked there, but I just didn't, it's another thing. I half was like, I don't like stinging them too much before the tournament. But it was like, oh man, that was really cool. And if it wasn't gonna eat on the first turn, that's when I was gonna take it out. But that thing was just so fired up. I'm like, I'm gonna give this thing a lazy J, I guess, and it eats. So nothing wrong with that. That was on Thursday late morning.
Yeah. Well,
But
it wasn't really on a secret spot. I'm guessing if you didn't catch that fish, somebody else probably would have gotten her.
true. But let's try and go backwards, but also not get too far ahead of ourselves. But at least while we're talking about that fish from Thursday, I put a waypoint down, and that 34-incher actually becomes very, very important on day 1. But a quick recap: the end of night, Wednesday, pre-fishing. The first 2 spots, a lot of action, catch one, lose one, see some fish. And we start running other spots that were kind of similar, and then a couple that were just like, let's try some like main lake points and stuff. And basically I was just like, man, I do not dig a lot of this, and we weren't really marking much bait, so we didn't really have a very successful end to our night on Wednesday.
No, not at all.
At all. I don't think we moved another fish. and we're running to so many spots and it just wasn't really panning out. So that's when it was just kind of like, ah, shoot, like good day of pre-fishing, but we really only have 2 spots now.
Yeah,
So let's
that we
go into
felt
day.
good about.
Yeah, let's go into the next pre-fishing day and just see what happens. We don't have much time. Like, let's get after it. We kind of wake up semi at tournament hours and we get on the water by 7 and we're like, all right, let's go to a different section of the lake. Nothing crazy far, but at the time we still just didn't know like how big Tonka was and how many of these slow no wake channels there actually would be. And we went over there and then, thinking in the back of my mind, I'm like, damn, this is kind of far from what we already got going, which isn't really a lot. So let's just see what's going on up here. And we go out of this channel and then we find this like super subtle point in a very, very known area of the lake. And I look at Max, I'm like, oh man, this is the type of stuff that you want to see. Like the wind's not beating in here like crazy right now, so it's not too obvious, but it's going across it. And it's a tiny little subtle point, but it's subtle enough that nobody's gonna give a shit about it. But like, let's make note of this. And then I drive over it. I'm like, oh my God, it's lit up with bait. Like, hell yeah. And in hindsight, it's probably like, oh, we should maybe just save this. But like I said, we're just fishing to try and get some. So we kind of moved to another bay and or no, did we just go in? No, we moved to
Uh,
another bay and we
I
kind of don't.
misjudged. No, no, no. I misjudged the breakfast burrito.
That's
That was
right.
our.
We had a misjudged breakfast burrito. So we still haven't fished a spot yet. Max got that taken care of. We go to a spot where Max had like a lot of confidence in, from kind of fishing here and there throughout June and July, and I completely believed him and everything, and we start fishing it, and at the same time I'm like not super impressed by the weeds, and I'm not really seeing much for bait. He's like, well, the water clarity is also significantly better. Like it was a lot darker here, and now it's like very clean. So we kind of half-ass fish the spot, not even. I'm like, you want to leave? And he's like, yeah, that's fine. And it was busy. There was other musky boats in that area, and just like every spot was taken. It's just like, I don't know. I'm not getting a good vibe. Let's go back to that one little subtle spot. Screw it. Why not? Let's just try it and see what we can at least pull off of it. Maybe raise a fish or two, and you can touch on what happens there to start
Oh,
on our
I
first
mean, look,
actual spot. We
Heartbreak City is what it was. I mean, god
big
damn.
time heartbreak. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to brainstorm some other baits to try because like I had mentioned, most of my Tonka fishing had been pretty deep. So with this kind of like, oh, there might be fish up shallow or throwing bucktails or throwing all that stuff. And um I asked Gus, I was like, do you bring that wood tick? I've been seeing Ryan McMahon posting some pictures that he's been catching some Minnesota fish on wood ticks, something a little different.
I think Aiden was also using those on Tonka a lot, especially
Yep.
earlier in the year.
Yep,
Mhm.
Aiden was too, and so I was like, yeah, I want to try that wood tick out and see what the hype is about. And we had not really thrown them too much in northern Wisconsin because it just, we had our blades that worked, and there was really no reason to go away from them. Not saying that they won't or wouldn't work in northern Wisconsin. I'm actually very excited to try them. But
Mhm.
anyway, so I throw on this wood tick that I don't think I had ever really even gave much attention to. We bought it maybe last year or something like that, and
Show season,
really
I
cool
think I
bait.
picked it up. Yeah.
Yeah, really cool bait. It's got the metal arms that hang off the front and they tick on the blades and whatever. It was like third cast in the spot that Gus loved. And like he said, it was a very subtle spot. And I think that goes to show a lot on Tonkas. There's a lot of spots out there, but there's definitely spots that are obvious community spots. And there's so many fish out there. It's like, man, if you can find those secondary spots that hold fish, like you might have a chance to get them to bite. And yeah, sure enough, I mean, third cast, fourth cast, maybe into that spot, just get absolutely walloped way out in the cast. And I knew it was a nice fish right away, just the way it loaded up. And fish kind of goes berserk, starts barrel rolling on the surface. And like it was kind of cloudy and a little shitty out. And Gus had a good vantage point of it. He goes, oh, that's a big fish. Holy shit, that's a big fish. And so my heart starts thumping. And I felt a lot of tension at first, and next thing I know, this fish just starts charging the boat at like a million miles an hour. Um, but way different than any like big northern Wisco fish that I'd ever caught. Like where you know it's just constantly pulling and digging and head shaking. Like everything just went completely light, like rod tip, everything. And it was like I had to reel just to keep up with this fish that was charging the boat. And I'm on the front of the boat, and all of a sudden I see this fish just come flying by my feet at like 80 miles an hour. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I start running to the back of the boat, like, holy shit. And I got a pretty good look
Mhm.
at her. Gus did too when it was barrel on the surface, but I got a good look from the top view when it kind of came through. And I'm like, man, that thing was just built like a 2x4. Came flying to the back of the boat, took her on the motor, and started digging and kind of just going nuts back there. I didn't know how I had it hooked, obviously not very well, because as I kind of took it around the engine, Gus was there with the net ready to go. We at this point we still couldn't see the fish. It kind of started digging under the boat and it just popped. I mean, I don't know what happened. I never felt like I really lost tension or anything. It was just weird. And I think one of the biggest takeaways I had from listening to all these different people talk about these big fish that they lost this last weekend, like I just don't know if those fish were eating very good or how they were eating lures, because I've never heard of so many people losing big fish. It was
Yeah.
just crazy. Like talking, I mean, we'll talk about Jeremy and Trevor, but like they hooked 6 fish this weekend. You know, I mean,
Mhm.
they ended up not boating one, but like they hooked 6 muskies. And that's crazy in a day and a half of tournament fishing. You know,
Right.
you heard about the team that took, I think, 10th or 11th. They hooked and lost 2 like upper 40s. Like these big fish were not easy to keep pinned. So, you know, obviously probably was some user error by me, but I don't know. I mean, it was tension and then it was not. Hard to say what the ballpark
Yeah.
number was on that fish. Obviously it
Uh,
wasn't small.
we
But
don't really know what to like ballpark it at because like I saw the top of it and saw just about how long it was. We were in slightly dirty-ish water, and it was also very, like Max said, a very dull day out Thursday morning. But I mean, when Max was fighting that fish and it went from thrashing out in the cast to all of a sudden it comes flying around the trolling motor and then flying on the back of the boat towards the from the trolling motor to the engine. I already kind of have the net, and then when I see where it's going, and I'm like, oh my God, either thumb it or walk it. Like this thing is not stopping, and I know that it's
mhm,
big, and you can't just this is not a fish you can just horse. You can't just
right.
horse a fish like that. You're gonna bend a hook out or something like that. And so Max walks it back, and then I see it keep going around the engine, and I'm like, oh my God, it's gonna get in my line that I just left out because I was just hoping it would just come right in. I didn't know it was gonna be a big one. So then I think I kind of dropped the net a little bit and pick up that rod. And mind you, this fish is still at least 10 to 20 feet out from the boat going around the engine, I think, at least. I was digging pretty good. And
Probably 10. It was just, yeah, dig
it
in
was
and
not, yeah. And then by the time I turned around or anything and got that rod out of the way, you said it's off. I was like, no, no, golly. And he got back that wood tick and it was pretty much bent in half, which means it was
mhm.
hooked in the center hook. Um, and there's a couple holes in the wood part of the body. And that bait is untouched. Like Max said, we've thrown it barely, but we have not gotten it chewed up in northern Wisconsin, and that's the 4th cast with it in Minnesota, and it gets demolished. That fish must have T-boned it in a way. That was just he must have just had like one of the 2 treble hooks in him or something. And I'm I've seen these after hooking a lot of them and guiding and seeing what these fish can do. They you can have them hooked as the best ever, and they can do one unpredictable turn out in the cast and pop off. But you're not gonna
Mhm.
know that sometimes, you're not, I don't know, unpredictable, but unfortunate. That fish was quite large. We didn't really know what to put a number on it because later we found out that these Minnesota fish sneak up on you for size. Um, I mean, just to kind of talk forward, we thought Max's 40 was maybe 38. I thought it was like a 3-footer. And then we put mine in the bag and we're like, maybe that's 43. And it goes 45 and a quarter. So the fact that that morning when we were talking about it being like a 46 to a 48, it could have been much bigger. We just don't really know exactly. Like that's what we estimated at, but you just
I
don't
only
know.
started to think it was more than 4 foot after seeing your 45 in the water because I was like, oh, that's
Mhm.
42, 43. Like I wasn't even going that crazy when we netted it. I was like, oh, it's good fish. Like nothing
Took a
nuts,
page out of my book from the prior weekend.
Yeah, yeah. We'll get to that at
Mhm.
the end, I'm sure. But I was like, oh, that's good fish. And then you take it out of the net. I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, Jesus Christ, that thing is still going. You lay it on the board, it's like 45 and a quarter. I'm like, what on earth? Like, I would have never guessed that fish was 45 and a quarter when it was
Mhm.
laying in the net. Same with
Mhm.
my 40 during the tournament. I was like, yeah, we were sitting there looking at
It's
the
like
net. I'm like, that's
it's
a
a
good fish,
cookie
like
cutter.
upper 30s maybe at best, like 38 at best. Throw it on the board, 40, and it's like, and then so yeah, after seeing mine come by my feet, and I think Gus got a good look at it too. We're like, man, that was substantially bigger than that 45 you caught. So hard to put a number on it, maybe 48, maybe 49, maybe 50, maybe 46. Who freaking knows? But either way, we'll never know. We lost it, and I lost it, and it is what it is.
That's all right. You got one pre-fishing. I was able to boat one pre-fishing, so we uh we had some Minnesota fish under our belt. We had some action. We were at least excited about that. I think um at this point we really didn't have that many spots, but I think Max was very happy because he's like, "Oh my God, we have baits that they actually eat. These are highly pressured waters that get fish every day. There's boat traffic everywhere. Like these fish are smart. It's clear water. They just don't eat any certain lure at any given time. But like if you can find a bait that consistently gets bit, like you had the Bam Bam 2 spots in a row, we put it on ice until the tournament. The wood tickets crushed and forecast by a giant fish, put that thing on ice for the tournament. And
We're
then
like,
there's just
we
kind of,
can't have anything happen to these baits. They're the only
oh, lock
ones that we
those things
have
up.
of those. Like,
Yeah. Oh, that's the other thing. It's like leaving, with not really preparing very well for this is like I own a ton of those big Bam Bams, and that big black and green Bam Bam. I had some juniors, but that was the only big one we had with us. And then that wood tick is the only one that we own
we're
at
like,
all.
lock
And I'm
these in a
surprised I
safe,
brought it.
throw away the key. Yeah, right,
You
right.
you were
I
asking
know.
for it, and I was literally like, dude, I don't know, just check some boxes. It could be here. I don't know. I haven't thrown it yet this year, but find it if you can. And man, did that ever help out. So we'll get right into, unless you got anything else to add on any pregame jitters at all for the tourney. I think we kind of
I
went
mean,
over
I
our
think the
expectations. So
pregame jitters were that we really didn't have much to. Uh, I would say like our spots were pretty limited to where we felt very confident. I think we had a lot of spots like circled or whatever. I mean, um, we felt good about some areas and whatnot, but like we really only had real confidence in maybe two, 3 spots. Probably 3 spots, I would say. We
mhm.
felt pretty good about. So yeah, that was the only thing I was nervous for was like, man, if these 3 spots don't pan out, like shit, be
Free
we're gonna
balling.
just be free balling.
Yeah, so our game plan going into day one was like we're looking at the conditions and we're like, okay, this is actually looking really, really good. And also getting a little worried, like, man, some of these locals might just get on some pretty crazy bites and probably whack a few because like it's looking pretty dang good. You have the slight little bit of rain, lot of overcast, pretty much a majority of that morning, like over half of the tournament hours on Friday. And like let's go. I'm like that spot where you lost that giant isn't a huge spot, but it's big enough where like there should in fact be more than one fish there. Even if it was a northern Wisconsin spot, I could, put a stamp on it. Like that's got to have some more fish. It's just loaded with bait. It's got the current we're looking for. Let's go there, spot one. Unfortunately, it's not exactly close to where all of our other spots were, so we made the run right away. And even though we were boat one, we heard from other people that the Senates caught one and they were boat two. They caught one probably while we're still going to our first spot.
Mm-hmm.
That's how much of a run we kind of made to start the day. And we fished it hard from, 7:17, I want to say was our first line in the water, till 8:45, I think. I think we gave it a true hour and a half. I think that's what we really wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
There's no moon phase during that, but it didn't really matter. I mean, there was no moon phase when Max got crushed the day before. That was at like 7 something in the morning or 8 or whatever. So we just figured like 7:30 or 7:45. I can't exactly remember, but it was in the morning, like in that 8 a.m. ish ballpark. So we're like, well, if we get a bite at that time, maybe we'll go and get another bite at that time. And we caught some pike. We didn't move any. You had potential. I don't remember what that was. There's something that happened out in the cast
We
or
didn't
towards
really
the boat.
we didn't really investigate it too hard, so
No, I mean we never went back there other than morning one of the tournament. And then we went back to where we knew and found
well,
out that it was 25 minutes of Slono Wake and Channel
yeah,
area. And
Brian.
we're like,
So
oh,
Brian, Gus, we're looking at this is how woefully unprepared we were really. I mean, in a way. It's like there's two different ways to get back to where we were fishing, and we were kind of looking at the map. We're like, well, that way looks way quicker, like distance wise, but we know there's some slow no wakes. We thought that between the slow no wakes there was probably some fast zones or whatever. Nope, all slow no wake. So we're like, well, if we screw up, maybe it's like a 2 to 3 minute difference. It was a long drive. After getting done with that first spot, not moving a fish, next thing you know, we're just like hunkered in the chair for 30 damn minutes, damn near. I
I
mean, it
think
was
I think yeah, because tournament started at 7 and we fished for an hour and a half in that first spot, and there was still a good amount of Slono Wake out of the takeout. I don't think we truly fished our second spot until like 9:15, 9:20. So there was a good chunk of 45, 50 minutes of driving in our first
2 hours.
2.5 hours, 2 hours
While the
of,
clouds are like sunken into the lake and like
and here we are just driving in Slono Wake. We're
on and
I'm
off
looking around at
rain.
these little lakes and I'm like, maybe there's muskies in here, but I'm like, well, we didn't pre-fish this and I don't want to waste any time here. So
Uh,
we just and then we found out there was a ton of action and a lot of people caught fish in the morning. I'm just like, it is what it is. Like we went to I mean, maybe I put a little too much confidence in this spot, but like it kind of still pains me that we didn't at least move another one.
I know.
So
No clue. No clue. It-
we'll have
yeah, I mean
you
we even left it
scout
alone
it
after
again.
I hooked that fish, and that was in the first like maybe 1/6 of the spot. And after we hooked
Oh
that
yeah.
fish, we completely left it alone. So we're like, oh, there's got to be another one in here. Especially after hearing of other people being like, well, if I saw one, I saw three. So we're like, okay, they're packing up. Definitely like I love the call. Like you were adamant about the call. I loved it. I was super supportive of it. I was like, man, this is nails. Like this first spot. I mean, when we went there Friday morning, there wasn't even another boat in eyesight. And it's like, okay, maybe we found a little something here, our own little hidden gem. And it's like, well, maybe there's a reason why there's not any other boats here.
Do we get lucky the day before? That's the part that sucks
Yeah.
about taking just the forecast on the spot, hooking a giant, losing it, and then being like, all right, hell yeah, this spot is like the bee's knees. Like this is freaking gonna be the spot. But
Right.
whoops, we'll have you
Yeah.
scout that later on, Max. Let me know if it's a fluke of a spot or if it's actually sneaky or not, or
Yeah.
it's just a one and done or
I'll go back there with a buddy, whether it's Ryan or somebody else. We'll scout it again and check it out. But yeah, no, so we make that long run back to the spots that we had some action, and like Gus said, it took a lot of time. So I wouldn't say we were in the best of spirits, probably mid-morning, if you'd agree with that.
no, still didn't really move a fish. And did we even move a fish before the one you caught, the 40?
No.
No, I don't think we did either. Yeah, we were struggling honestly, and I was getting a little frustrated because like we were fishing spots we knew there was already some fish. Like we had confirmation Max was always saying like, oh, at Tonka, like these fish love to follow. Like they hate eating, but they just love to follow. And that was just not the case for us, which later we did find out from some locals that there's actually not been quite as many following fish as they're used to, that midsummer time or something like that, or maybe earlier in the year where they're follow happy. But when we did contact them, a few lazy ones, we did seem to get um some sort of try at a lure or something. But when I was talking about that waypoint being very important on Thursday pre-fishing where I got my first Minnesota fish, we went back to that spot around the same time during that morning major, the end of it. And by the time we wrapped up this point, and we fished it because like we saw some other people fishing it, but we're like, screw it. Like we know there's some fish here. Like this spot is just loaded with bait. It's been wind blown. It is near a current area. The weeds are phenomenal on it. Like they just look too good. And we roll up to it, and I mean, I ended up like spot locking the boat and looking to see where the tracks jag and putting a waypoint where you caught that 40 incher. And on my maps, they're within 20 feet of the 34 incher that I got. And they were both within 10 minutes of each other back to back days. I think the first day was 11:30 or no, 5 minutes, 11:30. And then you caught yours during the tournament at 11:25 a.m. So I don't know if that's a pattern or whatnot, but it was the one pattern that we needed to get the first bite of the tournament. And if you want to touch on that, Max.
I was take a pause here. Brian, do you got any questions? We've just been word vomiting here for like 45 minutes. Anything pique your interest or anything you want to
doing a good recap? I do have a question, but I'm gonna wait till you guys kind of finish.
Oh, finish the whole. Okay. All right. Well, if anything else comes up, just let us know. All right. Yeah.
Keep you in that, in the
Yeah,
flow of
no,
things.
that fish came completely out of nowhere. Like Gus said, it was the first fish we contacted that day. So the fact that I actually ate, it didn't eat by much though, I'll tell you that. I mean, these
Ooh.
fish, I kind of want to just like talk about that with the Minnesota. I don't know if it's a Tonka thing because it didn't really seem that way at Vermilion, but again, granted, we've fished Minnesota really, in tournaments twice. Gus has been over here twice, one other trip, but nothing to really talk about there. But like our experience in Minnesota is super limited. So, these fish obviously, like we've talked about, are very pressured. I just wonder if they eat baits differently, because when it came up and ate that wood tick, it had one treble and the back treble and the bottom jaw. And I could see when I hooked the fish, I knew it was a decent fish and whatever. And I'm bringing it in and I'm like trying to drag it, like, in your tournament fishing, like you don't really want to try to play them out too much. You're just trying to get them in the net as soon as you can. Like the second that fish hits in a tournament, like your whole body just goes into a little different state of mind. Like your heart kind of jumps into your throat. You just kind of start getting all shaky and weird. I mean, you see it in other people's videos when they hook these tournament fish. Just for whatever reason, it feels like being able to stay calm and collected is not as easy of a task as it sounds. And so, anyways, I felt like I handled it well, but like as I'm seeing this fish kind of fighting and coming in, like I can see the wood tick blades spinning. Like I see the entire bait out of its mouth. Like I literally am like feeling the freaking metal tinking the blades. Like I knew it didn't have it hooked very
You could
well.
have
I'm like,
caught another
Gus.
fish while it was coming in.
Literally, I'm like, Gus, this thing is not hooked well. It's not hooked well. I'm freaking out. And like I just was so glad for whatever reason that fish decided not to dig. It didn't jump. It just was like, I'm gonna be caught today and give you guys this,
Hmm?
just grace you guys with this fish. Cause like,
It did
man,
not fight.
that thing hit the bag. It didn't really put up a fight. It hit the bag and that bait popped out within a half a second.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, it was like it hit the net and bait just like flew out. It was just like, all right. So yeah, I mean, we got the first one in the net. That's always a great feeling in a tournament. You get that first one off the just check that box, you're like, all right, you can kind of take a sigh of, just a deep breath. Like, all right, we're in this thing. It's only 11:30 on the first day. We got a nice fish in the bag. We had no clue how many fish were caught. We would assumed at this point that there was a lot caught. I think we got an update from Tim pretty shortly after that. It was like, yeah, 20 fish caught before
Couple
11 a.m.
doubles.
Couple doubles. We're like, oh shit. Like,
Oh boy, no, we
they're
just got
gone.
like a little mini fish, just kind of in the grand scheme of things. Like we're just pumped to get one again in the tournament. We're like, all right, well, we're kind of maybe in this. Like who knows? It's one of those things you could just double up in a short amount of time, and it kind of just rejuvenated us. Like I was saying before, that was the first fish we contacted. I don't know what was really going on in the morning. I don't know if our timing was off, the bait selection, the spot selection, like who knows? They were just it's our third day, my third day ever on Tonka. Max is still within, counting on two hands at most. That's being generous there, is really only like seventh time. Yeah, yeah, three other
Yeah.
times and then the pre-fit. Yeah. So not many times at all. So we just didn't like fully know, but we were just kind of going on what we knew. And we were just pumped to get a bite and get a fish in the bag, another tournament fish, and let's just kind of go back to the other spots where we didn't really see any, and let's just kind of see what happens. And I think we only hit one other window to note during the day where we had a few up in short order, very close to where we had another one up and caught one pre-fishing. And one of them was substantial size that we, really made note of, that came up in a weird fashion on your bait, I think, Max. So if you want to
Yeah,
show
we
kind
we
of went
started
down.
to throw different stuff. Obviously, the Bam Bam and the Wood Tick were our confidence base, but we had been given a little tip from our buddy Jaime. Shout out Jaime. He gave us some great
Shout
confidence with
out.
shout out with some different spots, some different baits. So we were kind of rifling through some Minnesota type lures. I threw on this beaver. I'm like, damn, this thing looks good. This thing's gonna get munched at some point in time this weekend.
Hmm.
And was working that thing very slow, and a nice like 45, 46 came up, tasted the tail about 10 feet out. I saw the whole thing. And I would say that fish kind of consumed us for the rest of Friday. We're like, that thing has got to eat, man. It was all fired up, and never got hooks in that fish on Friday. Moved a few others, but nothing like crazy. We just had that little window, remove some fish. We had that nice one try to come up and eat. But that kind of started the whole Camp Manti thing. It was the joke because we had this kind of pile of fish that we had moved later on Friday, and it felt like every time we fished that spot, our buddy Jeremy was driving by or fishing an adjacent spot. And so he's like, if you guys freaking moved up the
It's like, are
spot.
you guys just camping on that one? We're like, no, we just keep revisiting it. And
Yeah.
you always see us in the same part of it because, like, that's where the fish are. At least that's how we
Yeah.
kind of came to conclusion.
Giant spot, giant spot. And the only time we
Yeah.
would really move fish was in this like probably 200-yard stretch where like for whatever reason they're
Oh my
just
God,
hanging out
not
like,
even. It
yeah,
was,
maybe a 75 yard. I don't know. It was
or
small,
sorry, I
small
didn't mean
little
to,
area.
yeah, I didn't mean to correct you.
Oh, you're
I
right.
just looking at the waypoints, I remember it was like
Yeah,
condensed
yeah.
on
You're
this
right.
giant
You're right.
spot.
You're right. So it was a big spot. The fish were in a very, very small area. And not very many other tournament boats were fishing it. So we're like, oh, these are kind of, we felt like they were kind of our fish. Like we're like, all right, we know where they are. We know kind of what they want. But yeah, Friday ends. We find out that Clay and Nick tripled. We find out that there's a few doubles. We're not in the top 10 with the 40 inchers. So obviously a lot of nice fish were caught, which was nice. I think the PMTT trail needed a good day after
Yeah,
Cave and
seriously.
Madison, everything that happened at those two events was just total shit fishing. I mean, it really was. It was
And more fish
not.
caught that day than damn near Cave and Madison combined. I think there's 29 fish caught, and Madison had like 11 or 12, and Cave had like 22 or 24. So
Yeah, it's
it's
bad,
unreal.
bad event. So it was fish wise, but so it was. I felt like it kind of gave everybody a little bit of a rejuvenation. Like, all right, they're biting. You just got to go find them. Um, So yeah, like I said, that nicer fish kind of consumed us all last Friday. We move into Saturday. We're like, all right, screw the spot with the big fish. We ain't gonna go do that run again. We don't want to spend half the day. It's a shorter day on Saturday. It's a half day. We're not gonna spend 30 minutes driving today. So we're like, let's go right back on that active like mid 40s fish. And Brian, you'll get a kick out of this. We haven't told you about this yet, but so we take off, whatever. We're late out of the gate this time around because the order flips. So instead of being boat one, we're boat like
60
60
something.
something. And we pull up to the spot, nobody around. We're like, oh frick yes. Like we're gonna take this, some bitch. And we're sitting on the waypoint and I make a cast out. I'm reeling in. And as I'm about to make another cast, literally right where my bait just went through, about 30 feet from the boat, this fucker skyrockets out from the water, full show with a goddamn fish in its mouth.
What?
It ate. It was eating bait at the
It was
surface right in
eating, it
front of
was
our face.
popping
It jumped
bluegills.
vertical?
Vertical.
Oh,
I
yeah.
saw it just
No
go
way.
boom, mid 40s.
You saw the whole
No
thing, and I saw
way.
the tail hit the water because I looked just in time, and I'm like, "Is that what I think that was? Like, was
I
that
go-
the fish?"
I go, that's her. She's still
Usually you
here.
see them porpoise to
Is-
say what up, not full tarpon.
Now she
Oh,
boiled
dude.
again too, but no, she tail walked for us or
Fully out of the
whatever.
water. We were just buzzing baits by that guy's base for the next 25 minutes
I
trying
threw
to
on
get
flap tail in 20 feet of water.
it.
I was down
Dude.
bad for her.
Everything we could to get that thing to eat. Never even came to the boat for us. I mean, this thing was
No.
so dialed in on whatever pot of bluegill or whatever it was eating. Like it was like, oh, artificial lures. Like, yeah, I'm good on that. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that was a little bit of a kick in the nuts, I would say, to start day two.
oh yeah, and it's just like a giant spot, and I roll up and I'm like, screw literally like everything on the spot. Like I'm going right up just to these waypoints, and God, it's like what timing on that, It's like what if we came here in morning one, because we're the first boat and we got to her early on the first morning in that 7 a.m. time frame. Like what if she ate then?
Or just like
How
3
would we
minutes
know?
earlier that day.
Or that day even.
Straight
Yeah.
up. I mean, if you're there 5 minutes before that, like yeah, I don't know. I've never seen anything like that where a fish literally went vertical, like and it wasn't like a small, I mean, you're talking like a mid 40s inch muskie coming completely vertical out of the water and then dolphin diving back in, essentially.
So you
It
always
was
laugh
nuts.
about bass anglers, musky anglers just roaring down that throttle to go race into a spot. It's like, well, in that case, that might have paid off.
Yeah. Well, we
Yeah, it's like,
top
why
out
is
at
that
like
guy going so
38.
fast? Yeah.
They're
Yeah, I
eating
know
2 minutes.
we couldn't even hit the speed limit on Tonka, so it didn't even matter for us. If anything, we got the advantage that weekend because everybody else with their boats going 60, 65 could dumb it down to our level of speed.
Yeah, take it off in front of the Senates. Normally they just fly past us like we're
Got the
standing still. And
Batmobile.
they were actually in our wake for most of the time on Friday morning, taking
Yep.
off, which was pretty funny. But yeah, no, so that happens, and we're like, well, shit. Don't think that fish is gonna eat again. So like we should probably go find some more spots.
Yeah, and that's when the word free balling came in because it's like I said, we did not have that many spots and they just kept not panning out. And we're like, all right, what else do we have going pre-fishing? Not much. Okay. We hit it all. Okay. And then it was just like, let's just go to a spot that kind of had the wind going into it, big spots, just kind of go pick apart an area where we find bait right away and then just hammer it. If we see nothing, get the hell out of there and get to the next one. And that's pretty much kind of what we did. Just fishing extremely hard and using lures that we definitely thought should work. And I think that's when we didn't really do bucktails too much anymore because we kind of put a kibosh on super shallow, for the most part.
Yeah,
I mean, we
it was
still ended
sunny.
up
Day two was
fishing.
sunny and hot.
Yeah, and it wasn't as windy. We just kind of didn't feel like that was a great call or anything on just like pounding shallow water. It kind of would have been, it didn't feel right at all. So we stuck to deep. So we were sticking to like, the bam bam. And by late morning after no, it must have happened actually pretty quick. It was probably after that first spot. Max kind of just drilled into my mind because I don't really know what I was fully working like too much during the weekend because, I don't think I think I raised maybe one of the fish from Friday, but wasn't really having much action myself. I was putting a doubt in my mind if these Minnesota Muskies hate me again. Like they gave me one fish, like that was enough for me. And, I didn't really know what exactly to use. I was kind of trying tubes. I couldn't move freaking anything on tubes, and that's usually my absolute go-to in the tournaments. And I was just like, well, shit, there goes my confidence lures. And then Max was the one that had that one come up and taste the tail in the beaver, and he usually doesn't throw those, and I'm usually throwing, the absolute crap out of those in August and September. And he's like, you should throw this. Like give me the Bam Bam or let me throw something else. It's like you take the beaver, and I'm like, all right, that was like the confidence I needed to just like glue that thing on my rod. He said that I think from like Jaime and then also the guy, Ryan that you fished with a few times on Tonka, like that was the bait that gets bit in some ridiculous weather where it's like kind of stinks. I'm like, all right, that's all I need. I'll just toss this. I don't really know how to work it here in Minnesota, but I'll try and put some Wisconsin twists on it and maybe try the Minnesota poles, do both with it. And I don't know how many spots later it was. We kind of finally go into an area that we just checked pre-fishing. It was kind of one of the spots we drove over, but we didn't fish. Like, all right, there's weeds here. This looks pretty good. Mid lake bar, and we go around it. There's just bait juiced on it, and we get pretty much almost full 360 on it, and we're already kind of talking about our next spot. And that's when just one of my pulls with the beaver, I just stop dead in my tracks. Like exactly what you want to feel. Not like, oh, I'm slow pulling into weeds. This is just like gunk, boom, she's on. And definitely knew it was like a pretty decent fish, but she didn't fight too bad. And just another one that didn't do what happened to Max the other morning. Thank goodness she acted like a great tournament fish for us and went in the bag really nicely and just had one hook in her and I don't know. It's just really, really blessed about that one. Just coming out of nowhere. Had no
Yeah.
idea. That wasn't a fish we were
Just
chasing, not a spot we were chasing, just just kind of running and gunning at that point.
just pure gut intuition. Like, man, I think this spot's got to hold at least one fish. And we fished it thoroughly one time through the spot. And we literally, I don't know if this gives it away. There's plenty of this stuff out there, but it was a circular spot, we'll say. And we were kind of coming back to where we had started. And that's when that fish bit. So props to Gus on kind of sticking through the spot, not just dipping before we got back to kind of where we started. And I'll say this, I mean, it felt really good to net that fish, Gus. I mean, I feel like it
Yeah.
exercise. I mean, I know that plenty of people obviously like saw that video of Madison and like I've netted a lot of fish for you between Madison and now, but like to have one in the tournament hooked very light that size felt
Is it
felt like we
heartbeat
were
a little bit?
honestly, no, I felt good. Like it didn't even cross my mind until after I netted it, and it was like this feeling of like relief or whatever, like a weight lifted off my shoulders, kind of like exercised some demons. Like holy shit, because like if it would have happened again, it would have been like, oh my god, like this is insane. Like you don't ever want that. Like once is a mistake, two is a pattern. So it's just like, yeah, maybe it's in your head a little bit. Like I said, I netted a lot of Gus's fish. I'm used to doing that. Like if you guys are listening to this podcast, I have netted a lot of fish for Gus in my time because he's
hmm
usually the one catching them. So to have that happen in Madison was like almost like a rattling of the confidence a little bit where it's like, how did that happen? It just was so weird. So it's like he hooks this really nice fish in Tonka. We know that if we net it, it's probably going to put us into contention right away, instantly. And so like when it went in there, it was like just easy peasy, like we've done it a million times, no issues. And then it was just like once it got it in the net, I was like, holy shit, did that feel good? Like, god damn, just confidence back right away. The swagger felt back. It was just like, all right, we're good. We exercised that shitty situation for Madison. I know it doesn't make up for it, but at the same time, it just was like it was not hooked well. And thankfully, like it came into the bag very easy and didn't do anything stupid and just felt good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it was a very, very good net by you. Thank you. And I'm happy that it boosted the confidence. That was definitely, much needed for both of us, because we're out there fishing as a team, no matter who hooks it, no matter who's netting the fish. We're a team out there. I know old Tim gave you a little bit of a hard time at the awards ceremony on Saturday, but we didn't get to fully explain ourselves there. But for you uh listeners of the podcast, you obviously got the full rundown on how that all went down for sure. So, but we're back. Team Manty's back. Yeah, we were definitely bummed after Madison, but we didn't, you know, once we got that first one in the bag, we're like, all right, it's game on. And then now we get this one on the day two, 9:30 in the morning, or yeah, something like that. It was pretty
It
early.
was early. Yeah.
There's a lot of time left in the tournament. We're like, all right, there's no way we can go another day with just one bite, right? And just freaking the team that just loves to just consistently get one bite a day and hopefully get
Kill the
them. And
chain.
golly, man,
We've had multiple bite days, landed fish of just one.
yeah, just the first tournament we had that Sunday at Eagle River, we caught two that morning and then we went 2 for 3. But yeah, I know, just like landing, I don't know. It was just crazy to me that we got the bite, we got the confidence. We started running some really good spots with a lot of bait, with really good lures that were getting bit, and we just couldn't find them. We just couldn't get it going again.
Had two
And
other tries. Two other tries.
right, so I was just gonna kind of touch on that. We didn't move any the rest of that day. It was, well, actually, we never even had a fish flying in our lure behind it at all on Saturday. We had the one true bite. We had the one that was eating other fish off the surface, right next to us, like Shark Week. And otherwise, throughout the weekend, at other times too, on pull pause baits, there was like these weird like clunks, like you just kind of pulled and you're like, oh yeah, that wasn't a weed, but like I felt it stop dead for like a half a second. Like what the hell was that? And it wasn't until the last one that did it on the beaver where I was chucking it up on this point, and it was kind of a point off the shore, not like a very far mid-lake point or anything. And I think I got into like the second pull, and I feel that same clunk, where you're not really sure what the hell it is. And that time, like it was still close enough to the surface where you could see the big boil and maybe the tiny little snippet of the tail. And I'm like, oh my God, that was a muskie. These things are coming up and like either bumping it with their mouths closed, or they're going after it fast, turning it around quick, and then smacking it with their tail or something stupid. And so we had a few of those, specifically with pull pause baits that head dropped pretty quickly. So those fish truly are pressured, and um, I think they're hungry and they're active, but they get close enough to your lure, and if they sense one thing wrong, they're out of there. And some of those factors you don't know, they could be as much as a boat driving near you, like a pontoon boat, like a couple casts away going by you, where they hear that and it just screws up their feeding, or maybe they,
It's kind
who
of,
knows?
we've noticed the opposite of that in northern Wisconsin. Like we always joke about it, but it keeps proving itself. Like when a boat drives by, huck the prop wash,
Mhm.
and like a lot of times the fish will just show up and follow you into the 8.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, right?
These fish were
No,
eating baits
this,
so bizarre. It's so weird.
no, I think those fish, like, I think Max, that you kind of asked about it or talked about it a little bit ago. Uh, I gotta think it's a combo of the, clean to clean-ish water, depending on where you are, and just the overpressure of just so much commotion and so many baits through these spots that these fish, I don't know, I think they are truly, in a way, very educated, and to a point, they get to a lure and they probably figure out like, wait, I probably shouldn't eat this like way too late. So they just eat it weird. They're going to eat
Yeah.
it. They're not sure. They want to do something, but they're not going to come up and just like grasp onto it like you normally maybe would hope for. Like, I don't know. I think they're definitely hitting these lures with their mouths closed. 100%.
Yeah, I agree. I like after hearing Jeremy and Trevor, having 6 fish somewhat hooked, it's like the proof is in the pudding, and hearing other people losing fish, it was definitely true that they were not fully just choking these baits. Like they were nipping them. Like Gus said, they might have been tail smacking them, they might have been headbutting them. I don't know what's going on down there, but definitely we're attempting, and it's like every once in a while you would just catch a hook in one's upper lip and hope it stayed pinned. But it was like it was not, you never had an issue taking any fish off the hook this weekend. That's for sure. It's like they hit the
No.
net and they were off. They were like,
You wonder if
"All right,
so
we're
easy.
good."
wonder if they've gotten so smart where like they'll go up and like headbutt it or whatever. Because if they're chasing around a bait fish and they go up and get real close to it, it'll turn off, and swim down
Right.
and up and left and right. And they know that if they're chasing a bucktail and headbutt it and it just keeps going, they're like, all right. I don't
I'm
know.
out.
If they're just seeing, a straight line or something going, in the same direction after they nudge it, maybe they are smart.
Damn, Brian, that's a good point.
Just trying to be a fish.
Trying to think like a Tonka fish.
Yeah, I was gonna ask Clayton and Nick, but I guess did you guys see many other people trying to troll like they did, or did they kind of have, by default their own little tactic and it ended up working out?
I don't know if people like somehow got the word out because like Clayton and Nick did not tell anybody. They barely even told us anything. About the only thing we knew after day one is that they were trolling, and we didn't tell a soul. They didn't tell a soul, but we didn't know what they were trolling. We didn't know how deep. We had zero context because it's a tournament. Like they want to win. Like we're the competition too. I mean, I know we're staying with them, but like in a sense, it's just like, well, we don't really at this point want to say anything, and we totally respect that, and we kind of, we do the same. We hold back what we need, but on day one, I didn't see anybody trolling. I don't know if you did, Max, but day two, we saw for sure one, maybe two, but this one, I guess I'll quick touch on it. So the spot where we landed that 45 and a quarter, was a mid-lake bar, and released it. And who knows if it went back into the weeds, or maybe it just kind of did what sometimes hook fish do. They just kind of like release to the direction they're going. And I think that one was headed out to more open water. And this one boat was trolling one of the other bays near us. I saw them. And then all of a sudden they kind of show up in the bay where we are out of, nowhere. I don't know if they're just kind of skipping bays and just trying different things. And then all of a sudden they go by this bar that we got the fish. And next thing you know, for the next 3.5 hours, this boat is just going back and forth on the mid-lake bar. And we, honest to God, think that this boat side imaged the fish that we released. We're like, oh my God, that's a nice one. But it's going to be lazy as hell. It's inactive. It just got caught, It's not going to eat a trolling lure the same day. So I think they're going after one fish, potentially, or bait, or maybe they're marking more. We actually don't know, but it was kind of funny. I mean,
There's
it
your
was
pressure.
unfortunate for them.
That fish is gonna get wise pretty quick.
Oh, that
Getting
thing isn't
caught
going to
and
eat
then
again
seeing
until
baits
it's 52. That thing's
till
not going to eat again.
November.
I was like, that
No,
poor fucking muskie, like just got caught. Now it's got crankbaits just buzzing by its
Just
head
rattling.
every
Constantly
6
for
minutes.
3 hours.
Yeah, I'm pretty convinced that they side imaged the fish that you released, because when we released it, it didn't swim out back to the bar. It swam right out to open water, and it was like as you were releasing it, we kind of saw the boat coming in, and I don't think they really saw what was going on with us. And then they like went past the area that you released the fish, and it was like instantly they turned around and started
Oh, there's
trolling
one.
back across it, and then they turned around, and it's like we were hitting all these different areas in that section, and like they just kept going back and forth and back and forth. We're like,
And we
oh,
left the section once and came back to the end, and they're still there, going back and forth. And I'm like,
like
oh my God, they didn't move.
Stick and
really
stay,
hope.
make them pay.
Yeah.
That's one way to do it. It's kind of a yeah, not the right way, I guess,
Oh,
unfortunately. I don't think I heard any line scream from them, but
well,
no,
if
not
it
many
would have been
people were
it.
trolling. Majority were casting. Um, but that was a really cool freaking bite that Clayton and Nick got onto. Um, like they mentioned, they without the boat troubles, they probably would have been running and gunning just about like everybody else. And who knows? Maybe they stick more, maybe they stick less. Who knows? I mean, you just really never know until you go out there and do it. And you always look back and this is kind of why you learn from the tournaments. You look back on like what you kind of did for a while that maybe wasn't the right decision and how you could learn from that. So you go into the next time in Tonka where it's just like, all right, these conditions, we did this to start, not good. Let's go right to this. Let's try this. We know that these lures should work at some point. You start building that stuff. So I'd be, maybe before we get fully done here, Max, I was gonna mention that I'd be happy to go back to Tonka. We talked about that. I like Minnetonka much better than the Madison chain of lakes. No offense to those, but they're a lot more boring weed bowls. Minnetonka's got just spots galore, tons of bays. Obviously, it's more water too, but even if you shrunk it, I would still like it, a good
Yeah,
bit.
I mean, I think it has to be on the list for a late fall trip after all the boats get off of it. There's a lot of big fish in there, a
Oh
lot
my
of
God.
fish in
Hmm.
general. I was actually exchanging some messages with our friend Tyler Schlabs up in northern Minnesota, and we were talking that if you were to take Tonka and just stick it in the North Woods of Minnesota, like it would be potentially one of the best musky lakes on earth. Like with how
It's,
much fishability there
oh my
is and
God.
just spots
Yeah.
and fish in general. I mean, they've done a really good job stocking that lake just from how many smaller fish people were catching and seeing and same for us. Like in 5 to 7 years, that fishery is going to be, I think, really dynamite.
Hmm. And if it can withstand the pressure, which I think it can, just for the sheer size and probably how many people that don't want to fish it just because of how much boat traffic there is, I think it could withstand that, being 15,000 acres or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's
And
definitely in its advantage.
I will say we caught it at a good time. Like we
Yep.
definitely caught it at a good time of year. We had some very favorable weather. If conditions were different, I think the tournament's different. I think it could have been like another holy shit, what are we doing here type situation. But
Hmm.
I think if you can get that lake on a good weather week, with some minimal boat traffic, man, is it a lot of fun to fish? Because like you were
Yeah.
just saying, it's just spots galore and it's almost made me want to just keep fishing it. I'm like, man, I want to get back out there and try all these different spots we kind of talked about that we never really got to, where it's like, and you hear other people kind of how they attacked it, and it's like, oh, I would have loved to try that out, or gone and see this spot, or gone and fish that section of the lake. Like, there's just so much that we left unturned.
Yeah. It
So,
was it was cool to hear in the top 10 that there was maybe a little bit of overlap there, but I think there was like fully three bites, at least three different bites going on, and
mhm,
maybe more if you incorporate like parts of the lake. I was
right.
talking to plenty of people that had, in small bays were having action. There's tons of people that were having action on the east side, the west side. So tons of people having action right out in front of the freaking launch in Excelsior Bay and all that stuff, like nice and close and this and that and some people are like, oh my, we're seeing big old fish and sight fishing them in 2 to 4 feet of sand. Some people are finding fish of all sizes. I talked to a group that raised a giant and also caught a fish and saw some smaller fish in the areas where the weeds go out to frickin' 25, 26, and they said they had their boat out in like 28 feet of water. And we were getting a lot of action in that mid depth of like 10, 12, 14, 15, sometimes
Mhm.
boating 18, sometimes boating 10. And I think there's just a lot going on and it was pretty cool. It was heavily in that transition period of late summer to early fall, which is going on here in the Northwoods too. It's of Wisconsin. It's exciting. and pretty cool.
Yeah, it's awesome that that tournament turned out so well. I mean, I remember talking about it earlier in the year and the schedule came out and we were all kind of like shaking our head like Minnesota, Tonka, late August, week before Labor Day, like that water might be 1,000,000 degrees. The boats out there are gonna be crazy right before Labor Day. There's just a lot of like questions and it sounded like it all went pretty smooth and you avoided obviously some of the worst parts. So yeah, successful weekend for you guys and the whole Eagle River crew.
No doubt. Yeah. Yeah. 72 to 75 water temps really those 4 days, which is just an absolute blessing. I think like 2 days later, what was it, Max, in Minneapolis? Like 95.
Yeah, we dodged a bullet for sure. I mean, we got lucky. Obviously, Saturday got a little hot out there, but the water temps always stayed relatively just fine. 74, 75 at the hottest. And yeah, like I said, I think we timed it. I got lucky with timing it well with when the tournament was, and I think it ended up being the best stop on the entire trail. And I think that was, if you would ask me which tournament you were looking forward to the most, I don't know if I would have said Tonka. After just talking with people and being out there, but now it's like the script is completely flipped for me. I'm like, man, good weather day. If the recreational traffic might be a little bit lower later on in the year, it's like I'm just excited to get back out there again because
You're gonna be
yeah.
saying that same thing when you get on the Eagle River chain for the championship. I can't wait to get back out there again.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll say this, hey, I always love fishing the chain. I know we don't do it all that much when we get up there and do our musky benders and stuff at all the time, but chain's awesome. And I think the championship is going to be lights out this year if we do get a little bit of luck with the weather. That last weekend of September has definitely been very hit or miss weather-wise. You're either getting,
Oh
I
yeah.
feel like a big shutdown, crazy cold front. Not saying that it would shut down the fishing, but like a big time, like it could be
You could damn near
snowing
be in turnover
and
at
it
that
could
time.
be, yeah, it could either be damn near in turnover or it could be 85 degrees
Yeah,
and like full of boats. Like you just don't know.
yeah.
Or it could just be a pleasant fall weekend and a bunch of fish
I
get caught. And,
I was
yeah.
out there last year, like whatever the day was between October 1st and 5th last year, guide trip, 2 days in a row, and I went out into the chain and it was like 88 degrees one of the days by mid-afternoon. If I didn't see like what the trees looked like, if you just took the traffic and how hot it was outside and just kind of, blindfolded me to the trees and whatnot, I could have thought that was middle of July. There was
Yeah.
everybody and their mother and cousin and brother got their pontoon boat back out if it wasn't already in storage and it was like, hell yeah, I'm going on the chain. I don't even know what day of the week it was, but they're just like, we're just gonna go putt around and cruise. I mean, we went in for lunch one of the days, just to kind of like break the trip apart. And there was a dude in there in board shorts and a freaking Hawaiian button up. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing here? What
Thought it was
town did you
fall.
just blow in from? It's freaking October, buddy.
Wild. Yeah. So yeah, fingers crossed. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have some fun things lined up for that. Brian, we didn't get you on for the Muskie Bender episode. You had a little bit of an emergency situation, saving the world once again.
Yeah.
Of course, duty calls. But yeah, real quick before we sign off here, I know we're going a little bit long, but did you have a good time Muskie Bender weekend? You caught some fish? I thought that was just an absolute blast.
Yeah, yeah, we got blessed with great weather and a lot of active fish, a lot of accessible fish, which was nice. Yeah, I'm sure, covered some new water. What was it, 11 fish total, I think once I got up there. So, definitely one of our better benders yet.
Overhit. The
Yeah,
Vegas
over
over.
hit. Vegas over did hit. Yeah, had a great time. Only caught two myself. Had a chance at the big one that Max caught that was just posted today. But yeah, looking forward to getting up again this weekend and hopefully catching one of good size.
Yeah. Speaking of fish length, do you with the whole I would say on on average, we tend to overestimate Wisconsin fish, and then in our limited experience fishing Minnesota, we've tended to underestimate Minnesota fish. Do you think there's anything biologically going on with that? Do you have any reason for that? Like, is it actual, like the fish are built different, or is it like just an expectations thing, or like, do you think there's
I was gonna
any
ask if
reason
it's
for that?
something to do with like a different, maybe lighter hue that I don't know, or a tail that kind of blends in more. You don't get to see the full length. I don't know. I haven't really
Hmm.
seen him in a soda fish, but
That actually makes way more sense than what I was gonna say. I think it is the I think Brian, you just made a great point.
Yeah,
I think I
Brad.
was totally gonna say like the hue of them is definitely different. They're more silver and like, when they get big, they kind of lose the full big spots and they kind of turn in a way or shape or form back to some sort of a greenish type, but they still have that brighter look and I was gonna say they just have longer tails or something. The head's still the same size ish, or But I also think on top of the different hues in the water of like what they kind of shine in the water, um, it's got to be just the fact that the Minnesota fish get bigger and they grow faster. So like a juvenile, not a juvenile, like a cookie cutter 3-footer here is probably going to seem based on like their head size, kind of like a 40 to 42 in Minnesota. And that's just kind of probably, I think that's probably the truth behind that on why we're underestimating there. And then the greenies were like, oh my God, look at that one. And then it's like a 40 instead of what we maybe thought it was because the head is already so fully grown. Maybe it's like a fully grown head male or something like that. Where in Minnesota, you could have a 40-inch female where the noggin doesn't look too big and you're just not quite sure until you throw it on the board and you're like, oh my God, it surprises you.
Yeah, like I sent Gus one of his 39 3/4 fish, and then I sent him one of Nick's the 39 3/4 that they caught at the tournament last week, and I'm like, in what world are these fish? Like, if you were to show just a reasonable person with like decent eyesight, hey, do you think these two fish are the same length? Like, no one
Hmm.
would could be like, yeah, those fish are the same size, but I mean,
That's
they
true.
are. It's just so weird to me. I don't know what. I think you both made good points. I have no explanation. So glad you guys could bring something to the table there because I was dumbfounded by that.
Yeah, this all stemmed from Muskie Bender weekend, miscalculating lengths of fish. We can, I think, well, by the time this comes out, I'll have the post of my big one on the weekend too. But we'll start with that because that was the first day. I don't know how much we truly got into it because we didn't have you on the pod, Brian, but Max raised it, knew it was a big one. You were the only two that saw it. And Max is thinking, I don't know, what'd you say, Max? Like 47, 48, like
Yeah,
probably a 4-footer. And Brian goes, that's 45,
tops,
like tops.
tops.
yeah.
And then Max just immediately flips a switch, like, dude, in what
He
freaking
did
world?
he did start mentioning like 49.50.
No, I did not.
Yes, you did. You
I
said
don't
like
think he
at least
did.
No way.
48.
I
Yes.
never said 50. No,
Yes.
that never came out of my mouth.
Because we split the difference on the actual measurement.
It was closer to what Max had to say. That is for sure. The next one is where it went a little haywire, but
No,
um,
you said 45. Might have been 43. And
That
I
was
was
on
like,
Gus's.
no,
That
no,
was
no,
on,
don't
or
get him.
sorry, that
Don't
was on the other one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't get them mixed up. This is so that
oh,
that was that fish to catch it. It was 47. Just an absolute unit of a northern Wisconsin muskie, and we're all stoked. And then Sunday rolls around, and Brian raises this fish where I think just before Brian got a glimpse of it, I see this thing come flying in broadside. And if you saw in the
I
picture
saw
of
it like
Max's,
15 feet out coming in.
yeah, and I could see it from a long ways away. It was very sunny, and I could see it broadside where I think Brian, your visual was right over the top of this fish. And I don't know if it's just because I got to see it from the side, why it made it look longer. And from the picture, everybody saw like that thing looks lengthy. It's not that it wasn't like a well-built fish. It was well built, but it had a little bit more of a lankiness to it. And I'm just thinking like in my mind, like, oh, my eyes popped when you had that thing in the figure eight. You did your eights. The thing was kind of flying around 3, 4 times and then it goes off. And I'm like, oh, that's a big one. Like I'm thinking like damn near the same of what I just landed 2 days prior. I'm like, honest to God, damn near thinking like almost that 4-footer class because I'm like, that is a lengthy one. And you
That's
immediately
what
go
you
like,
were saying.
and you go like, that's like a 43. And I almost just punched you in the freaking face and shoved you in the water. I'm like, in what
Dude,
damn
you were
world was that fish
saying you were like
43?
that's a 48, and I was like, dude, that is not like I've had that size fish in the 8 before. That is not a 48.
And then you said 43, dude, and I almost lost my shit. I'm like,
Well,
what
it
the
turned out.
45, right in
Yeah.
almost the middle.
Yeah, no, you weren't very far off, but I think it was just the fact that like we when we raise these big fish, like we're like, oh my God, that fish is so big, and you're like, yeah, I mean, it's all right, it's all right.
Yeah, you're just lowballing and being really nonchalant the whole
Gus's,
weekend.
yeah, Gus's was like a different age of fish. The 47 and the 45, like that one had some real girth to it.
hmm
That 45 looked like skinny in the water, so it didn't look like it had a huge head at the time when I was seeing it, but
Yeah, I don't
either
know if
way,
that fish gets much bigger.
two trophy northern Wesco fish for sure.
Yeah. Oh man, I think that I haven't had very many visuals of fish completely broadside when they go in the 8. I've never been able to just like see them behind somebody else's lure, but 10 feet to the side and looking out and just seeing the side of the fish and illuminating the water. So yes, I was far off, but you you missed the mark too. Neither of us even figured it out. So
Yeah, well, glad we caught them both to be able to actually
that's
not
I was
have
gonna
this just
say
be still a debate.
that's the proven point there. We caught them.
Yeah.
So thankfully we don't even yeah.
I mean, I feel a little foolish now after you bumped yours and it was 47. Because even when we had on the net, we're like, oh, it's 40, 49 all day. It's all day. It's 48,
I was
49.
thinking some crazy things. Nobody really wasn't saying much. I'm like, dude, that is a
Because it's just like
freaking
it's
unit.
tank. But like I remember Brian, I was like, Brian, if that fish is 45 inches, you can kiss my ass like that. There's no chance that thing is 45 inches. And Brian just goes, well, why don't you just go catch it and then we can figure it out for real? And I was like, all right, but so yeah, appreciate the nudge there, Brian. Thanks for the motivation.
Just coaching.
Yeah. That's what you're there
Yeah.
for. You're just a motivator. All right. Well, I think that puts a bow on us for tonight. Big time recap. Brian, thanks for kind of sitting in here tonight. And I will ask you this before we head out. You get the number one overall pick in fantasy this weekend. Who you taking?
He does? Or if?
No, I'm saying if you get the number one
Oh,
pick
geez,
overall in
sorry.
fantasy, who you taking?
Iguodala. No, I'm just kidding. Probably got to be McCaffrey.
Really? Going running back at one, huh?
Probably got to be. Yeah,
Bandwagon.
I just had two. I've had two drafts,
Uh-huh.
and both of them I got random generated to the 7th pick in a 12-man league, which is absolute
Sure.
jail. My team's trash.
Your teams are always trash though, so what's new?
Oh yeah. I'm sure we'll have a little recap after draft weekend here.
Stay tuned
But,
after our outro for a 10-minute fantasy football segment from me and Brian.
Where we all run through our teams.
Because everybody cares so much.
This guy slid down to me at the 5th pick.
oh God, it wouldn't be 10 minutes. It would be like 6 hours.
Yeah, that'd be brutal.
So
I'll
I'm
just let those Zoom go.
sitting there
and-
with the 4 pick. I see Brees Hall goes. I'm just
All right.
racking
We gotta wrap this one up here.
All right, everybody.
Well, good luck anybody going out fishing Labor Day weekend. Have a fun and safe weekend out there. Extra day. We'll be like Max said, we'll be mainly doing those types of games we mentioned in the intro. Brian's coming up early. We'll get to do a little bit of fishing. Max is coming up slightly-ish early. We'll maybe be able to get to do a touch of fishing.
Oh, we're
but
getting
then,
out. We're getting out.
yeah, we're getting out. I'm just saying, like
yeah.
in the grand
Oh,
scheme of
yeah.
things, it's not
We're
like
getting out.
it's
Dude,
not like it's a
I
bender.
can't wait to musky fish again. After that weekend, I cannot wait to get back out on the water.
Yeah, that was truly something special. But yeah, I think that wraps up this Tonka PMTT talk that we just had. Again, congrats to Clayton and Nick, first place, and we will see everybody at the championship. Sorry, I'm just rambling here. I think
Peace.
Brian, you gotta take us away here. We need you back.
Peace.
We got some guests coming on for you guys. We got interview season is coming back here pretty soon.
All
so.
right, everybody, stay tuned for interview season when the snow starts falling and it starts getting cold, and dark, and gloomy. But in the meantime, we got Labor Day here, the final weekend of the summer. So some say after this fishing season really ramps up, we got a fun weekend. I'm sure everybody's trying to get out on the water. Hopefully some good weather. Might be getting some cold fronts. Fishing might be good, might be bad. Good luck to anybody with their last minute fantasy drafts coming up and all our lashers and mashers out there this holiday. Cheers.